Chapter 849. A sudden clap of thunder. The last few times Qin Sheng had met this youngest uncle, they did not talk much. It was only when his uncle came to Shanghai that youngest uncle said a few more words to him. However, at that time, youngest uncle looked more serious and was far from being as approachable as he was today. After all, the things they talked about at that time involved the fate of two big families. As for that family gathering, perhaps because there were too many people, little uncle didn't speak much and left early after the meal. Perhaps he knew that if he was present, these juniors would be too restrained and unable to let loose, just like when Zhu Weiguo was present. This time was different. Because there were not too many people, Zhu Zhangshun did not need to be afraid of anything. Zhu Weiguo was not there. Last time, Zhu Zhangshun gave the initiative to his brother-in-law, Zhu Weiguo. After all, Zhu Weiguo was his real uncle, and he was just an uncle. His uncle-in-law, who was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt, looked very tall and straight. His footsteps were even more steady. For so many years, he had been walking step by step like this. However, there were more and more white hairs on his head. Qin Sheng did not know if he had dyed them or not. Qin Sheng did not know whether he had dyed them. On the balcony of the living room on the second floor, Zhu Zhangshun took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket as soon as he arrived. He turned around and handed one to Qin Sheng, saying, "Your aunt is very strict, so I can only smoke secretly." It did not occur to Qin Sheng that his uncle-in-law would give him a cigarette. The weight of this cigarette was not small. Qin Sheng had to catch it. Then, he quickly took out a lighter and lit it for his uncle-in-law. After that, he said, "Uncle, smoke less in the future. I'm doing this for your own good." Zhu Zhangshun leaned against the guardrail, took a deep breath, and said, "I smoke occasionally. I'm old, so I can't be as indulgent as you young people. You young people should also be more careful." In such an environment, Qin Sheng did not feel any pressure. He smoked casually, as if he was chatting with friends. In fact, children all wanted to be friends with their fathers, but the fathers were always worried that they could not maintain their dignity. Therefore, the relationship between father and son became a difficulty for most families. Are you under a lot of pressure during this period? After waiting for a while, Zhu Zhangshun finally started to talk about business. He did not really come to the second floor to smoke. He came here today because he really wanted to talk to Qin Sheng about something. Qin Sheng replied in a low voice, "Anyone would feel pressured when encountering such a thing. But I've gotten used to it over the years. I feel uncomfortable when I don't feel pressured." Zhu Zhangshun looked at Qin Sheng and said slowly, "It's actually a little unfair for you to encounter such a thing not long after you came back. But you are a man of the Qin family after all. Since such a thing happened, you have to be at the forefront. No matter what the final result is, you have to face it calmly." He also did not know whether old Master Qin's decision back then was right or not. If he had brought Qin Sheng away back, then just to avoid these trivial things, now that Qin Sheng was involved again, would the old master feel a little sorry for him? Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, "Uncle, I know. No matter what the result is, I will accept it. But I will also try my best. It's just that my ability is limited, and there will be a time when human strength is exhausted." Zhu Zhangshun patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, "It's good that you understand. Some things can't be changed even if you work hard." However, nothing could be changed if he did not work hard. Qin Sheng fell into silence. He had been thinking about that thing all the time. No matter how hard the Qin family tried, could they really change the result? Because from the beginning to the present, Qin Sheng increasingly felt that the Qin family's things were not simple. What could they change when the old master could not change it? No matter how hard they tried, the final result might be that the old master lightened his punishment. Qin Sheng could not help but say, "Uncle, I want to ask, what will the final result of our family be? You have a broader vision and should be clearer than me. But if you don't want to say it, I won't ask." Zhu Zhangshun took a deep breath and asked, "Do you really want to know? It might not be good to know some things." Qin Sheng hesitated for a moment and nodded heavily. "I want to know." Zhu Zhangshun turned around and no longer looked at Qin Sheng. Instead, he looked at the Sinan mansion opposite, which was probably the place he came to the most. However, it was never for work. Most of the time, he accompanied the old lady or his wife to relax. Most of the time, it was also at night. After all, as a leader who appeared on TV every day, it was easy for him to be recognized. Zhu Zhongshun said, "There is the best result and the worst result. It may also be the result of weighing the interests of all parties. At present, no one can say for sure because everyone is also testing the bottom line of the Qin family this time. However, they're afraid that they will fall into it and it will be difficult for them to get out at that time. The best choice is to stay out of it, so there's no risk. However, how many people can resist the temptation of the Chong and family, which is such a big cake? Don't they all say that fortune comes from danger?" Zhu Zhongshun said with a little contempt. He was very contemptuous of some of these people's practices, including the Chong and family and its shareholders, including Qin Chang'an. Therefore, he hoped that this time, the matter of the Chong and family would be scraped off the bone to heal the wound. In this way, he could kill the chicken to warn the monkey. After all, there were many interest consortiums like the Chong and family. How'd they get rich, rise, and become cancer? It was nothing more than some interest alliances. They used human resources and power rent-seeking to integrate resources in all walks of life. Among them, the financial circle was the hardest hit because finance was the top of all the industry pyramids and because finance was the fastest way to make money. In the past, the state had the will to crack down on this aspect, but it did not have the ability to do so. Most of the people who were powerful in front of ordinary people were actually just shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Now, since the anti-corruption efforts in the financial circle had been intensified, especially after several big shots in the financial circle had been killed one after another, those real big shots had surfaced. Therefore, the Chong and family became the first one to be targeted, because the bird that sticks out gets shot. Zhu Zhongshun said casually. Then let's talk about the best result first. The best result is that everything is a false alarm, or there's some bumps in the road, but the ending is very good. The Chong and family will not be affected in any way, or it will just be reintegrated and supervised. Your father will come back safe and sound, but he may have to keep a low profile in the future. As for you, you will continue to do things step by step. This is the best result, Zhu Zhongshun said casually. But he was very clear that this was not possible at all. If this was the case, it would be a challenge to the whole power system. In the future, other big shots would become more aggressive or not change at all, which was not what the higher-ups wanted. After Qin Sheng heard this, he directly shook his head and said, "Uncle, this is not possible. If this is the case, the thunder is loud but the rain is small. It will never cause the current situation." Zhu Zhongshun was very pleased that Qin Sheng knew him in this way. At least, Qin Sheng did not expect the best result. Otherwise, if he worked hard for this, he would offend a lot of people and owe a lot of favors. In the end, the Qin family would be isolated. The Zhu family would definitely not get involved in any of the Qin family's affairs, because the price to pay would be too high. Zhu Zhongshun continued to say, "The second result is the result after all parties have weighed the pros and cons. The Chong and family will lose most of its interests, which may not only include the interests of the Qin family. As for your father, he may be punished appropriately. But for the Qin family, at least it will not really hurt the Qin family. You can choose to quit the Chong and family or integrate your interests in the Chong and family. From then on, you can go on a different path and have nothing to do with what happened before." He was willing to talk to Qin Sheng about this today because he saw that Qin Sheng was willing to listen to the Zhu family suggestions. Secondly, he wanted to know what Qin Sheng was thinking about, which was related to how the Zhu family would deal with it later. Therefore, although it was just a chat, it was also a way for Zhu Zhongshun and the Zhu family to test Qin Sheng and the Qin family. After all, until now, they did not know what kind of result the Qin family wanted. Only when they knew the result could they work hard. This time, Qin Sheng was lost in thought after listening to Zhu Zhongshun's words. He began to sort out some things systematically. It seemed that he had not thought about these things before. He just thought that as long as he worked hard, the result would be out of his control. However, after listening to Zhu Zhongshun's words, Qin Sheng had to re-examine some problems. Zhu Zhongshun was not in a hurry. He was waiting for Qin Sheng to give him the answer he wanted, or Qin Sheng wanted to say. After a long time, Qin Sheng replied, "Uncle, the second result is very likely to happen. It may also be the result that many parties want. But I'm a little confused. What do you mean by saying that the Chang and family will lose most of its interests, which includes the interests of the Qin family?" Zhu Zhangshan said meaningfully, "Do you really think that they can pry many things from the Chang and family? Do you really think that those people could divide the Chang and family? You underestimate your father and some people's determination. I can only tell you that the Chang and family is now a time bomb. Whoever touches it will be unlucky. Some people don't press the bomb now, just to see how many big fish there are in the water." When Qin Sheng heard this, he was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. His whole face froze. He seemed to have guessed something. He also thought of what the old professor of Tsinghua University had said to him. Everything was so terrible. After coming to his senses, Qin Sheng muttered to himself, "Uncle, if what you said is true, I am afraid that the second result is also very small. Especially for my father, I am afraid that it will not be so easy." "Then do you want to hear the worst result?" Zhu Zhangshan nodded silently. It seemed that Qin Sheng was very calm and did not overestimate the second result. Qin Sheng nodded gently. He was already mentally prepared. What was the worst result? Zhu Zhangshan continued to look into the distance. This city was becoming more and more prosperous, but the pressure on every ruler was immense. This was because if one wanted to achieve remarkable results in this city, it would be a little too much. Moreover, Zhu Zhangshan wanted to continue moving forward. He was only 2 steps away, and each step was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The worst result is that the Chang and family will no longer be the Chang and family, and Qin Chang'an will no longer be Qin Chang'an. From then on, everything will disappear in the long river of history. Zhu Zhangshan said calmly, as if there was no emotional fluctuation when he said these words. It was like telling a harmless joke. The speaker was calm, but the listener was shocked. Was this the worst possible outcome? Qin Sheng dared not think about it. He thought that he might have guessed it, but the worst result still shocked him. But was it really so? Qin Sheng did not know. After all, this was just a guess. But this was his uncle's guess, and it could also be his uncle's guess. Their guess was more than just a guess. Before Qin Sheng came to his senses, Zhu Zhangshan had already pinched the cigarette butt and left the second floor. As a busy man, he had a lot of work to deal with. The most important reason why he could spare this time to come here was to chat with Qin Sheng. The real storm had just arrived. Chapter 850. Chapter 850. The TRU teach killing and burying Zhu Zhangshan knew that what he said today would definitely make Qin Sheng think deeply, which also explained why the Zhu family asked the Qin family to wait previously. Because many things were not clear now, if the Qin family blindly made trouble, the final result might be the opposite of what they wanted. The Zhu family did not want to see the Qin family go to the worst situation, so they tried to persuade them. At least this was within the reasonable scope of the Zhu family, not directly and crudely interfering in the Qin family's affairs. After Zhu Zhangshan went downstairs, he said goodbye to the old lady and left directly. He stayed for less than an hour. His daily schedule was originally very full, like most people in high positions. Today, he only rushed over after canceling an event. The old lady smiled and told him to pay more attention to his health, not to be too tired, and to eat on time, etc. The old lady appreciated this son-in-law and believed that he could go further. Lin Su was a little surprised. Why didn't Qin Sheng come down to see her uncle off? Out of politeness, she stood up to see this uncle off for the first time. No matter what the Qin family would be like in the future, as long as this uncle was in Shanghai, the Lin family's development in the future would not slow down. Obviously, this uncle's career would not stop here, so it was definitely a wise move for the Lin family to move their headquarters to Shanghai. Zhu Qingwen smiled and said, "You stay with Grandma. I'll go see your uncle off." Hearing this, Lin Su sat down and watched her uncle leave after saying goodbye. Outside the yard, Zhu Zhangshan did not rush to get in the car. Zhu Qingwen asked casually, "Have you talked?" "Yes, I guess he is still digesting it." Zhu Zhangshun looked up at the balcony on the second floor. Qin Sheng was not there anymore. He had to bear the pressure, and it would get bigger and bigger. If he was not mentally prepared, he was afraid that there would be problems in the future. Zhu Qingwen said thoughtfully, I hope he can think it through. After all, the Qin family's future depends on him. I'm afraid it will be difficult for Qin Chang'an to come out this time. Zhu Qingwen's careless words seemed to have a conclusion about the Qin family's crisis, but no one knew what the process would be like. Wasn't everything like this? Not yet. Zhu Zhangshun smiled meaningfully, then turned around and got in the car. After Zhu Zhangshun left, Zhu Qingwen stood there in a daze for a few seconds. She had no idea what her husband and brother were planning. So far, she was just a messenger because she knew that both of them would listen to her. However, she had no idea how they had discussed it. Zhu Qingwen was not sure. Zhu Qingwen shook her head and smiled bitterly as she returned to the living room. Seeing that Qin Sheng had not come down yet, she said to Lin Su, Su, why don't you go and see what Qin Sheng is doing? Of course, Lin Su knew what her aunt meant. After informing her grandmother, she went upstairs. The old lady's expression did not look too good. She said unhappily, Girl, are you hiding something from me? Why do I feel that you have been acting mysteriously lately? Zhu Qingwen was shocked when she heard this. She was afraid that the old lady would know what was going on, so she quickly comforted her. Mom, don't think too much. Why will we hide anything from you? Besides, even if we had something, will we be able to hide it from you? We don't dare either. The old lady said doubtfully, That's good. When Lin Su went upstairs, Qin Sheng was sitting in the living room upstairs, smoking. He looked a little tired, which made Lin Su somewhat worried. She walked quickly to Qin Sheng, held his hand gently, and asked, What's wrong? Qin Sheng did not want Lin Su to worry too much, so he said with a smile, Nothing. I just received a call. The company in Beijing is a little tricky. I'm thinking about how to deal with it. This was a white lie, as long as it could make Lin Su feel at ease. Lin Su believed it and asked, Do you need to go back? No need. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it, Qin Sheng said in a low voice. After staying with the old lady on Sinan Road until the afternoon, Qin Sheng left with Lin Su. Anyway, he would be in Shanghai recently, so he could come to see his grandmother at any time. In this way, his grandmother would not think too much. Fortunately, the matter of the Qin family had not been completely exposed. Once it was exposed, the news would be everywhere on TV, and the old lady would have to know it at that time. Therefore, the Zhu family was somewhat worried at present. After leaving Sinan Road, Lin Su went back to Lujiazui. There were more things to do in the company. In the evening, she would accompany her second uncle to attend a dinner party. As the big shots of the Ningbo Chamber of Commerce, how could the Lin family not attend the dinner party in Shanghai? Moreover, the Lin family would focus on Shanghai in the future, so they naturally needed to communicate with the big shots of the Ningbo Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. Qin Sheng made an appointment with Bao Fan at the top floor bar of a hotel on the Bund. Although it was not yet evening, Qin Sheng still liked to see the scenery on both sides of the Huangpu River. He remembered that when he first arrived in Shanghai, he took Su Qin to the sightseeing hall of the World Financial Center. At that time, the construction of the Shanghai Center had not started. When Qin Sheng arrived, Bao Fan was already waiting there. This time, Qin Sheng came to Shanghai not only to relax, but also to appease the important officials of the Qin family in Shanghai. The Qin family's interests were not only in the Chong and group, but also in other interests. However, compared with the interests of the Chong and group, these interests were not worth mentioning. So many people forgot about these interests of the Qin family. As an important economic town, Shanghai was naturally the center of the Qin family, second only to Beijing. Such a big thing suddenly happened to the Qin family, which had such a great impact on the Chong and group. How could it not affect the internal affairs of the Qin family? It was said that when the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. Now, the Qin family was like a group of dragons without a leader. Qin Sheng had just returned to the Qin family for less than a year. If it were not for Gong Sun, they would have risen up in revolt. As for Shanghai, at least Bao Fan was here. However, Bao Fan's previous attitude towards the Qin family was not necessarily the same now. because Qin Chang'an had been there before. As long as Qin Chang'an was there, no one dared to take Qin Sheng lightly, because no one had the strength and right to challenge Qin Chang'an. Everything they had was given by the Qin family. However, the situation was different now. Qin Chang'an had an accident. Without Qin Chang'an, what would Bao Fan think? Whether in the past or after Qin Chang'an's accident, Qin Sheng had never been involved in the internal affairs of the Qin family. This was Qin Chang'an's intention, and also because Qin Chang'an believed that with Gongsun, Qin Sheng did not need to think about these things in the short term. After other things were settled, Qin Sheng could take time to deal with these things. Most importantly, once those things were settled, how could others not believe in Qin Sheng? Moreover, Gongsun would cooperate with Qin Sheng. Whoever wanted to cause trouble would have to weigh their own strength. However, now the Qin family chose to wait. No one knew how long they would have to wait, so it was very easy for them to get into trouble. Therefore, before Qin Sheng came to Shanghai this time, Gongsun had reminded him that it would be better to talk to Bao Fan and figure out Bao Fan's thoughts. This was because many people were waiting for the opinions of these few big shots. Naturally, Gongsun could not rebel against the Qin family, so the attitude of Bao Fan and the one in Shenzhen was more important. After seeing Qin Sheng walking over, Bao Fan immediately stood up and greeted him. "Young master, you are here." There were 2 other tables around the bar, but they were all Bao Fan's bodyguards. Without the protection of the Qin family, Bao Fan was very careful when he went out now. Qin Sheng held Bao Fan's hand and said, "Brother Bao, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Why are you so polite?" According to age and seniority, Qin Sheng should call Bao Fan Uncle Bao. In the beginning, he also called Bao Fan like this. Later, they became familiar with each other. In order to make their relationship closer, Qin Sheng called Bao Fan Brother Bao. In this way, they would be closer to each other. Bao Fan said casually, "Young master, things are different now. I have to pay attention." Qin Sheng did not know what Bao Fan meant by that. He could think of it positively or negatively. It all depended on how Qin Sheng thought. After the 2 sat down, Qin Sheng casually ordered a cup of Long Island iced tea, while Bao Fan ordered a cup of Yamazaki whiskey. Looking at the bustling Lujiazui and the Huangpu River, Bao Fan's mind wandered. "Brother Bao, how are things in Shanghai and Hangzhou while I'm away?" Qin Sheng asked in a deep voice. He was more or less concerned. After all, before he left Shanghai, he had caused such a big commotion. First, the Yin family was in turmoil. Then a few big shots in Zhujiang fought with each other. Qin Sheng really had no idea what the situation was like now. Bao Fan explained truthfully, "The Yin family has been quiet. After Yin Chaozong disappeared inexplicably, the Yin family was in a mess. In the end, it was Old Master Yin who made the final decision. Half a month ago, Old Master Yin suddenly brought back a 10-year-old boy. It is said that he is the illegitimate child of the Yin family's eldest brother. He has been hidden for many years and has not been found. It seems that the Yin family has chosen to acquiesce to Yin Chaozong's death. They just treat him as a sacrifice in exchange for the peace of the Yin family. Because of this child, the Yin family has a successor. If not for this child, I'm afraid that Old Master Yin would not be so calm." Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. He finally let go of the grudge with Yin Chaozong. Bao Fan echoed. Indeed, at the beginning, there were people looking for the Yin family. As for who they were, young master should be very clear. But they were all turned down by Old Master Yin. The second brother of the Yin family was also held down by Old Master Yin. In the end, they chose to make peace. After asking about the Yin family, Qin Sheng asked again, "What about Zhujiang? After Third Master Wu died, what about them? What about the old monk?" Bao Fan let out a long sigh and said, "It's all a mess." Due to the sudden incident of the Qin family, Qin Sheng had no time to care about them. He could only kill them without burying them. He did not care whether they were Wu Yongchuan, the old monk, or others. Qin Sheng said indifferently, "Since it's a mess, let it be. It has nothing to do with us anymore." Seeing that Qin Sheng was not very interested, Bao Fan did not go into details. Originally, he wanted to talk about this farce. Just like what was said in the TV series Drawing Sword, The northwest of Shaanxi was already in a mess. The old monk started to clean up the internal affairs after he was done with the millstone for his grandson. Boss Hu and the Dugu family started to take advantage of the situation to rob Third Master Wu. Wu Yongchuan and a few other forces were fighting among themselves. It was really a wonderful drama. Bao Fan said somewhat worriedly, "Young master, you look very tired recently." Qin Sheng let out a sigh and said, "How can I not be tired? However, I guess Brother Bao must have had a hard time during this period." Hearing this, Bao Fan immediately became nervous. Chapter 851. What happened to the Qin family might be suspicious to the outside world, but it could not be hidden from the big shots inside the Qin family. So Bao Fan knew what was going on from the very beginning. However, Bao Fan did not want to talk about these things when they met today, because he knew that Qin Sheng had been under too much pressure during this period and might have experienced a lot. It was not easy for him to come to Shanghai. If he put more pressure on him, he might not be able to bear it. However, Qin Sheng's sudden words surprised Bao Fan. He did not understand what Qin Sheng meant for a while. Was this the reason why Qin Sheng suddenly came to Shanghai? Why did Qin Sheng suddenly come to Shanghai? But he did not do anything. Even if he suspected Bao Fan, he did not have to come in person. Bao Fan did not answer this question in a hurry. He hesitated for a moment and replied, "Young master, did you hear any rumors? If you have anything to say, you can say it directly. I am not afraid of slanderous accusations." Qin Sheng took a sip of his cocktail and laughed. "Brother Bao, why are you so serious? I just said it casually. You must have had a hard time during this period. Such a big thing happened to the Qin family, and people's hearts are wavering. How much pressure are you under in Shanghai?" Bao Fan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Young master, do you really mean this? Then what else do I mean?" Qin Sheng pretended not to understand. He had to figure out Bao Fan's thoughts in Shanghai this time, so that he could be completely at ease in the future. In fact, this was related to his choice in the future. If people's hearts were really wavering, and he could not control these big shots, he would definitely give up the Qin family's interests in this aspect. Since they had already put it this way, Bao Fan did not intend to guess each other anymore. It was not his style to hide things like this. Instead of letting Qin Sheng be suspicious, it was better to be honest. In this way, they could trust each other in the future. So Bao Fan said directly, "Young master, I think you are suspecting me." "Why do you say so, Brother Bao? Is there anything I don't know?" Qin Sheng did not admit it and gave the initiative to Bao Fan. If Bao Fan was willing to talk about these things, he would trust Bao Fan more. Bao Fan stared at Qin Sheng very seriously. He no longer thought that today's meeting was just to reminisce about the past. He finally started to meet Qin Sheng face to face. At the same time, he had to make his position clear. He had to let Qin Sheng know that he, Bao Fan, still supported the Qin family without any hesitation. Indeed, during this period of time, many people had come to him, and some people had also said many things to him, asking him to leave the Qin family and establish his own family. However, Bao Fan rejected all of them because Bao Fan knew more than them and could see further than them. The most important thing was that his headquarters was in Shanghai. Who was the man in charge of Shanghai now? He was Qin Sheng's uncle, and the Zhus had been deeply rooted in Shanghai and Zhejiang for so many years. Even if Bao Fan had eaten the heart of a bear or the heart of a leopard, he would not dare to betray the Qin family and establish his own family at this time. No. Not at this time. Not at any time. This was definitely not a wise choice, especially now that Qin Sheng had to take over. Qin Chang'an was not close to the Zhus, so he had nothing to do with the Zhus before. However, Qin Sheng was the Zhu's favorite. Could Bao Fan not see it clearly? Therefore, if it had nothing to do with feelings and only talked about interests, Bao Fan would not betray the Qin family. Qin Sheng, it's all thanks to Master Qin that I can be who I am today. It's not easy for me to get to where I am today from a nobody. It's really not easy. I won't say those emotional words, but I know how to be grateful and I don't have too much ambition. As for my character, we got along in Shanghai some time ago, so you should know something about me. Bao Fan said very sincerely because this was related to the problem of how he would develop in Shanghai in the future. To take a step back, This might be related to his life and death. Bao Fan could become Master Qin's henchman and was even placed in an important position in Shanghai by Master Qin. It was not only because of his outstanding ability. There were many capable people, but there were not many smart people with great wisdom. Secondly, it was also because of Master Qin's appreciation for him. All these years, Master Qin had rarely made a mistake in judging people. Bao Fan was very clear that even if the Zhus were not involved, although Master Qin and the Qin family were in trouble, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Those powerful enemies of the Qin family could take advantage of them when they were down, but they definitely would not have the chance to do so. Moreover, the bird that sticks out will be shot. The Qin family absolutely would not allow anyone to find fault at this time. If Bao Fan sought his own death, he could not blame others. At that time, he might be killed as a warning to the others. In the end, it would be those onlookers who benefited from the conflict. Considering all the pros and cons, Bao Fan absolutely had no intention of betraying the Qin family. Qin Sheng still did not intend to take it seriously. He smiled and said, "I don't think Brother Bao will betray our Qin family. I still believe in Brother Bao's character. Moreover, for so many years, our Qin family has never mistreated Brother Bao. I believe that Brother Bao is not such a person. Young master, let's get straight to the point. Otherwise, I will feel uneasy," Bao Fan said earnestly. He felt more and more pressure. Although Qin Sheng was only a young man in his 30s, Bao Fan knew him better than anyone else. Based on the movements that Qin Sheng had made some time ago, it showed that this young man's means were not simple. Moreover, Qin Sheng represented the Qin family now. If Bao Fan really suspected Bao Fan, he would definitely be at a disadvantage when Bao Fan had time to deal with Bao Fan. Something happened to Master Qin. The Qin family was in turmoil. People's hearts are unpredictable and uneasy. During this time, there were indeed many people who came to me. Their intention was very simple. They were afraid that the fish in the moat would be affected by the fire at the city gate. They hoped that they could leave the Qin family to protect their wealth. Therefore, they wanted me to stand up for them, but I refused all of them. It's not that I, Bao Fan, dare to stand up for them, but I, Bao Fan, don't have this idea at all. They have all forgotten who gave them what they have today, but I haven't forgotten. Therefore, young master, you can rest assured. Anyone can betray the Qin family, but I, Bao Fan, will never do it. I was, am, and will definitely be, Bao Fan said firmly. His attitude was so firm that people had no choice but to believe him. Qin Sheng put down the cup in his hand and stared at Bao Fan, trying to figure out whether Bao Fan's words were true or not. Recalling the bits and pieces of his interaction with Bao Fan, he did not dare to believe it completely, nor did he dare not to believe it completely. What if he was stabbed in the back when the time came? If he did not believe him, what if Bao Fan was forced to betray him? During this special period, people's hearts were unpredictable. Qin Sheng did not dare to bet heavily. After a long time, Qin Sheng asked sincerely, "Brother Bao, can I really believe you?" Bao Fan knew that Qin Sheng was very hesitant. He did not blame Qin Sheng for doubting him. Even if he was in his position, he would also doubt others. At this time, no one dared to believe others so easily. If he made a wrong judgment, it would be a big blow to the Qin family. However, Bao Fan had to let Qin Sheng know his intention. He said earnestly, "Young master, you don't have to worry. Just wait and see what I do in the future. If I really have any ideas, you can ask Lao Chong to kill me. I will never fight back." Qin Sheng's words made him trust Bao Fan a little more. He slowly stood up and walked behind Bao Fan. He patted Bao Fan's shoulder heavily and said, "Brother Bao, I will leave Shanghai to you. Don't let me down." Bao Fan stood up unhurriedly. His eyes were like torches as he replied, "Young master, don't worry. I will be in Shanghai." Qin Sheng nodded heavily. Then he turned around and left. He trusted Bao Fan more or less, because he had no choice but to believe Bao Fan. There must be someone to guard Shanghai. If there was a revolt in Shanghai, other places would follow. This meant that the other half of the Qin family would be gone. However, Qin Sheng did not completely believe Bao Fan. He would still keep an eye on every move in Shanghai. If there was any movement, he would definitely kill it in the cradle. It was already evening. Bao Fan originally wanted to treat Qin Sheng to dinner and meet other people in Shanghai. This would also help to calm people's hearts. However, Qin Sheng said that he was not in a hurry. He would be in Shanghai recently. He would treat everyone in person another day. Bao Fan did not say anything and watched Qin Sheng get in the car and leave. After getting in the car, Qin Sheng went straight to the Shanghai Music Hall. Qing had a piano performance there today. Although it was not her special performance, and there were other teachers and students from the Shanghai Music Academy, she was the last one. How good was Qing? Qin Sheng originally had an appointment with Jiang Xianbang and Qing for dinner tonight. Now that he was back, he naturally had to report to them. Qing was now his woman. During this period, Qin Sheng did not care much about her. If he still did not see her after coming back, it would be somewhat unreasonable. Qing might not say it, but she must be somewhat unhappy in her heart. When Qin Sheng arrived at the Shanghai Music Hall, who knew that the performance had already come to an end. Originally, Jiang Xianbang had reserved a seat for him, which was next to him in the front row. At this time, Qin Sheng could only sit at the back and quietly enjoy Qing Er's exquisite performance on the stage. He was holding a large bouquet of roses in his hand, which was naturally for Qing Er. Qin Sheng had never seen what Qing looked like on the stage. In the past, he had listened to Qing play the piano and the zither in Jiang Xianbang's old house. At that time, Qing looked as calm as water, like a fairy who had descended to the world, which always made people feel that it was not real. However, the Qing on the stage today looked different. She was like the most dazzling star in the night, bright and dazzling. Everyone's attention could not help but be attracted by her emotions. Every move was full of charm, as if this was the real her. After the song ended, Qing who was wearing a black dress, slowly stood up. She looked at the crowd with a smile and bowed slightly. The audience's thunderous applause lasted for a long time, saluting this talented, great beauty. Not long after, Qing left the stage and went backstage. Only then did Qin Sheng quickly got up with flowers in his arms and chased after her. Chapter 852. It was said that boys were raised poor and girls were raised rich. It seemed that most families were like this. After all, a boy was the future pillar of a family. He had to experience all kinds of hardships from an early age, just like how old Master Qin chose to take Qin Sheng away from Sijia City. It was because old Master Qin could guess that with Qin Sheng's quirky character and the powerful background of the Qin and Zhu families, if he stayed in Sijia City, Qin Sheng was likely to go astray. Who asked Sijia City to be so tempting? Therefore, it could be said that Qing who shone brilliantly on the stage, could achieve what she had today. It was all thanks to Jiang Xianbang, a man who was not her biological father, but was better than her biological father. If Qing had stayed in her hometown, no matter how much money Jiang Xianbang gave her, this orphan would not have become what she was today. Music was not something that ordinary people could afford. Even those who were talented needed a lot of money to invest. Jiang Xianbang was not short of money these years. He was willing to invest anything for Qing whether it was money or family love, as long as Qing liked it. Of course, Qing achievements today could not be ignored because of her talent in music and her own efforts. It seemed that all of this was fate. In fact, with Qing talent and conditions, as long as Qing was willing, Jiang Xianbang could make Qing a music superstar. For example, he could send her to a top foreign school for further study, participate in various top music competitions, cooperate with various top music teams and big shots, or spend a lot of money to package and promote Qing. Jiang Xianbang was not short of money or connections in this area. He was famous for being stubborn in the bund. This was easy for him. What's more, who did not like a beauty who was talented in music? It was just that Qing was not willing. She liked this kind of ordinary life. It was enough to be a music teacher. She went to class every day and occasionally went to perform and so on. If she was asked to live like that, it would be too tiring. Jiang Xianbang was not short of money, so he never thought of using Qing to make money. Moreover, he treated Qing as his own daughter. Everything was based on Qing's happiness. As long as Qing was not willing, he would not force her. If Qing liked it, he would definitely do his best. Therefore, Qing lived like this. She was like a fairy hidden in the big city of Shanghai, not feasting on the smoke and fire of the mortal world, yet returning to the ordinary. At this moment, tonight's performance was over. The audience was still discussing the stunning, beautiful pianist just now. It was really a combination of beauty and talent. Why hadn't they heard of her before? Of course, there were also teachers and students from the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. They naturally knew about this beautiful teacher from the school. She was a very special existence. The audience had dispersed, but the backstage was still lively. Qing was still greeting the musicians who would be collaborating with her on the same stage tonight. Of course, some young talents had already been fascinated by this great beauty. They took the initiative to talk to her and finally asked for her contact information. However, they were all rejected by Qing very tactfully. She never needed a complicated circle of friends. For Qing, it was already very late. Finally, after finishing these things, Qing was ready to leave. She knew that her uncle would also come tonight. She saw him on the stage. She reckoned that he would be waiting outside. Her uncle said that he would take her to dinner after the performance. Just when she just went out, Qing saw a lot of people surrounding outside. Most of them were carrying flowers or gifts in their hands. She originally thought that they were other people's admirers. Unexpectedly, these people saw her coming out and rushed forward at the same time. This shocked Qing. However, she had seen such a scene before. After calming down, she continued to walk forward. During this period, she also saw a lot of acquaintances. They were all her pursuers and admirers. Some of them had been chasing after her for a long time, like the one who was beaten up by Qin Sheng last time. However, Qing did not pay attention to anyone and continued to walk forward without hesitation. Those people were somewhat unwilling to give up. Fortunately, Jiang Xianbang had sent bodyguards to wait for Qing outside in advance. At this time, they finally came in handy. They directly blocked those pursuers outside and did not let them get close to Qing. It was not until a guy who came late appeared that the two bodyguards stopped, because they had already recognized who the pursuer holding a large bouquet of roses was. Who else could it be except Qin Sheng, the big pig trotter? After Qing stopped, she was a little surprised. She subconsciously looked up to the front. When she saw who the man was staring at her with a smirk on his face, Qing's delicate face, which had been as calm as water, burst into the brightest smile in an instant. She trotted to the man excitedly. At this time, Qing was no longer a fairy, but a down-to-earth little woman in love. Qin Sheng had already opened his arms with one hand holding the flowers, waiting for Qing to jump into his arms. He seemed to enjoy this reunion at this moment, and he also liked the most real Qing in front of him. However, the surrounding pursuers and admirers were full of anger. They couldn't help but ask, who is this guy? What does he have to do with our great beauty? If he is her brother, they should hurry up and get closer to him. If he is her boyfriend, they should just beat him to death. At this time, Qing had already jumped into Qin Sheng's arms. She hugged Qin Sheng tightly and buried her face in Qin Sheng's chest shyly. After missing him for such a long time, she finally broke out at this moment. She really missed this man. Qin Sheng also hugged Qing tightly and gently touched her hair. Then he whispered in her ear, "There's so many people watching." Those pursuers and admirers hated Qin Sheng to death. They had probably guessed the relationship between Qing and this man, but they still held a trace of hope in their hearts. They hoped that this was definitely not the existence that they were most worried about. Otherwise, they estimated that they would not have another chance. They were very envious, jealous, and hated that the man who was hugging the goddess Qing was not them. If it were them, they would probably wake up laughing even in their dreams. At this time, Qing suddenly made a very unexpected decision. After she let go of Qin Sheng, she did not say anything. She slightly bent over and took off her high heels. After she got up, she directly took Qin Sheng's hand and directly ran outside with a sneaky smile. Only then did Qin Sheng come back to his senses. He understood why Qing took off her high heels. Then he was pulled by Qing and kept running forward, not caring about anything. Behind them, those pursuers and admirers wanted to chase after them, but they were stopped by Jiang Xianbang's 2 bodyguards. They were angry and wanted to fight, but they knew that their strength was far inferior. In the end, they could only be angry and did not dare to say anything. The 2 kept running forward like this until they were out of the Shanghai concert hall. Then they bent over and gasped for breath. For Qin Sheng, this was nothing, but for Qing, she had never been so crazy. She did not know why she was so impulsive tonight, but at that time, she thought so. Qin Sheng stared at Qing who was a little embarrassed and did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had never seen Qing like this. He estimated that this was also the first time that Qing had been like this. He did not know whether she had scared her pursuers. It turned out that the goddess could also be so crazy. Qing saw Qin Sheng staring at her and smiling and asked with some doubts, "What are you laughing at?" Qin Sheng shook his head and replied, "I'm laughing at you. Is the you in front of me really you?" Of course, Qing knew what Qin Sheng meant. Thinking about it carefully, it was true. In the past, she was a quiet and beautiful woman, but today she was more like a crazy woman. So after thinking of this, Qing also laughed out loud. Qin Sheng slowly squatted down and touched Qing's scratched foot. He said with some distress, "Don't do this in the future." Qing muttered in a low voice, "It's not your fault. You suddenly appeared in front of me. I thought I recognized the wrong person. I just wanted to give you a surprise. Uncle Jiang knew that I came back today and said that you had a performance tonight. Unfortunately, I was delayed by something in the afternoon. When I found out, it was already too late, and I only made it in time for your last performance. Next time, I will definitely arrive in advance and not miss your performance." Qin Sheng looked up and smiled. Qing touched Qin Sheng's face and said very gently, "It's okay. I will play it for you whenever you want to listen." Silly girl. After Qin Sheng stood up, he was somewhat touched and hugged Qing. Qing did not speak anymore. She was very happy and leaned her head on Qin Sheng's chest, feeling his heartbeat and temperature. This was the most real Qin Sheng, not the Qin Sheng that only appeared in her dreams every day. She really wanted this moment to stop, to go on like this forever. Cough, cough. After a long time, a very sudden cough broke this warm moment. Qin Sheng and Qing came to their senses and looked at a very casually dressed little old man not far away. The little old man was naturally Jiang Xianbang, who had been here for a long time. He really could not wait anymore, so he coughed on purpose. Or maybe it was because after experiencing that thing, Jiang Xianbang was very relaxed when he returned to Shanghai. He did not bear too much pressure like before, and also let go of a lot of things. Now, he just enjoyed life. It was as simple as that. I hope I didn't disturb your time alone. To be honest, I have been here for a long time, and I really can't hold on anymore. If you want to be tired of me, I will leave enough time for you later." Jiang Xianbang deliberately joked. Qing said a little embarrassedly, "Uncle." Qin Sheng let go of Qing and walked to Jiang Xianbang. "Uncle Jiang, good. Your mental state is good. I thought you would be very tired. It seems that everything has not beaten you yet." Jiang Xianbang said with interest. He did not expect Qin Sheng to return to Shanghai so soon. Such a big thing happened to the Qin family. It would at least take a few months to deal with it, unless the situation stabilized. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Qin Sheng to return to Shanghai in a short time. So he had already given Qing a heads up in advance. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "It's still early. I won't fall so easily." "That's good," Jiang Xianbang said quietly, then looked at Qin Sheng and Qing, and continued, "I guess you're also hungry. Let's go to eat first. If there is anything else, we can talk later." Qin Sheng and Qing looked at each other and did not have any opinion. They smiled and followed Jiang Xianbang to get in the car and leave. The episode just now would be very clear even after 10 or 20 years. Chapter 853. After the last incident, Jiang Xianbang was like a retired 50-year-old man. He was more casual and indifferent. He did not have many pursuits. He only wanted to enjoy life for the rest of his life. In this life, Jiang Xianbang had obtained a lot of things, such as money and beautiful women, but they all became worldly possessions. If Qing it did not exist, Jiang Xianbang would really be alone. At this time, Jiang Xianbang was so lonely, so he was very glad that he made the choice to bring Qing to Shanghai. These years, he really treated Qing as his own daughter. If one day he really had an accident or died, all his things would naturally be left to Qing. After leaving, Qin Sheng sat in Jiang Xianbang's Bentley. Jiang Xianbang naturally sat in the passenger seat, leaving Qin Sheng and Qing in the back seat. TSK, TSK, TSK. Jiang Xianbang was such a competent uncle. He worried so much about Qing's happiness, which made Qin Sheng feel a little embarrassed. It seemed that Uncle Jiang had become his bodyguard. In order to celebrate the success of Qing's performance, Jiang Xianbang booked a place in a Japanese restaurant on Middle Huaihai Road, which was relatively close to his old foreign-style house. Qing liked to eat Japanese food. Jiang Xianbang did not have any pursuit of food. After all, he was born in a poor family and ate whatever could fill his stomach since he was young. He was not as pretentious as those rich families. On the way, Jiang Xianbang casually asked, "How long will you stay this time?" Jiang Xianbang knew the current situation of the Qin family. As the pillar of the Qin family, no matter why Qin Sheng came to Shanghai, it was impossible for him to stay there for too long. The Qin family was such a big business. How could they just leave it alone? Not sure yet. I may stay for a few more days. There is nothing much to do in Beijing now. It is more comfortable to stay in Shanghai. Qin Sheng replied with a smile, holding Qing's hand. Hearing this, Qing was a little happy. She was afraid that Qin Sheng would leave in a few days. She did not have much time with Qin Sheng. Even if he was in Shanghai, they could only see each other for a few days. If he went back to Beijing, she did not know when they would meet again. She could not go to Beijing to disturb Qin Sheng. Jiang Xianbang was more or less confused. He was very clear about the situation of the Qin family. Otherwise, how could Qin Sheng have time to go back to Shanghai? But he could only say, "That's fine. I don't have so much energy. I can't let this girl stay at home every day. You know she has no friends." Qin Sheng thought it was reasonable. It seemed that it was summer vacation now. Qing who had no friends, seldom went out. She spent most of her time at home. Although she also liked this kind of life, it was easy to have problems if she did it often. So Qin Sheng readily agreed, and said that if there was nothing to do, he could take Qing to a nearby place to relax. At dinner, Qin Sheng and Jiang Xianbang drank some sake. Qing also drank some plum wine, but she did not drink too much. She was not a good drinker. If she drank too much, she would get drunk easily. Lao Chong also joined them for dinner and chatted with Chong Baji about some topics that both of them were interested in. After all, Jiang Xianbang made his fortune in that aspect, while Lao Chong had some attainments in geomancy and geomancy. After dinner, Qin Sheng followed Jiang Xianbang and Qing back to the old foreign-style house not far away. Qing boiled a pot of tea for them to sober up. It seemed that she knew that her uncle and Qin Sheng had something to talk about, so she went back to her room and did not disturb them. Men always had a lot of things to do. Moreover, she knew that Qin Sheng had been very busy recently. Lao Chong and the others were waiting in the car outside. Qin Sheng and Jiang Xianbang sat opposite each other. There was no one else in the living room except for them. They could say whatever they wanted to say. Jiang Xianbang took the lead and asked, "Did something happen? Why did you come back to Shanghai all of a sudden?" Qin Sheng said honestly, "Uncle Jiang, you think too much. It's really nothing. I just came back to relax." It seemed that everyone was so worried about him when he came back to Shanghai all of a sudden. After all, the Qin family had been in such a big trouble. Jiang Xianbang squinted and said, "What about your family? Your father?" Jiang Xianbang had heard about the Qin family long ago. However, when the rumor became the truth, he was still somewhat shocked. After all, that was the famous Master Qin. It was not easy for Master Qin to settle the matter, but now he was in a mess. How could he not sigh and sigh with emotion? Qin Sheng said lightly, "Well, something happened to the Qin family. The old man was also taken away. Now the Qin family is a mess. No one knows in which direction things will go. Maybe. Jiang Xianbang was confused and said, "Then you still have the mood to go back to Shanghai to relax?" Qin Sheng did not want to say too much. He replied directly, "Uncle Jiang, you don't have to worry about this. I know what I'm doing. Such a big thing is not easy for anyone to solve. Now Sijio City is a place of trouble. Maybe we can see it more clearly when we leave there. We're just waiting now." Jiang Xianbang let out a long sigh and said, "Forget it. I don't want to ask about these things. It's not easy for you to come out to relax. I don't want to put more pressure on you. I think you must be exhausted during this period. As long as you know what you're doing, it's okay. Besides, you're not alone." Qin Sheng did not say anything. He just picked up the teacup thoughtfully. Maybe his departure would also disrupt many people's plans. Even Jiang Xianbang and the others could not figure it out. Maybe others also felt the same. It was not late. After drinking a few cups of tea, Qin Sheng slowly stood up and said, "Uncle Jiang, it's not early. I'll go back first. You can tell Qing." Jiang Xianbang frowned slightly and said, "It's so late. You still want to go back? This is also your home. You can't let Qing be sad. After all, she is your woman. If you leave like this, women will always think nonsense." Qin Sheng was a little hesitant. He naturally understood what Uncle Jiang meant. He could do whatever he wanted, and Uncle Jiang would not stop him. But Qing would think too much. He had to give Qing an identity after all. "Well, then I won't go." Qin Sheng finally made up his mind. After all, it would come to this step sooner or later. He would never push Qing to others. He could not be cruel and could not do it, so there was no need to hide it anymore. Jiang Xianbang said with satisfaction, "That's more like it. Then I'll rest first." Jiang Xianbang directly left after saying that. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This old guy was afraid that he would not be responsible for Qing. He could not wait for Qing to become his woman. In this way, he would not have to worry anymore. After all, the only person in his life that he still worried about was Qing. Qin Sheng stayed downstairs for a while. Then he told Lao Chong and the others to go directly and pick him up the next morning. Finally, he called Lin Su and told her to stay at Uncle John's place tonight and not to wait for him. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng more or less felt guilty. But he did not want to think about it. Some things were just like this. He did not want to lose anyone else. At least he would not leave Qing behind. After going upstairs, Qin Sheng walked to the door of Qing room with ease. He knocked on the door slowly. Qing quickly came out and opened the door. She did not even ask who it was. It seemed that she felt that it might be Qin Sheng. After all, in this house, only Uncle Jiang and the housekeeper Uncle Wang would usually knock on the door. But they did not knock like this, so it could only be Qin Sheng. When Qing was about to take a shower, she did not expect Qin Sheng to come in. She did not know whether Qin Sheng would stay or go back tonight. If he stayed, she would be very happy because she had already regarded herself as Qin Sheng's woman. Once she made a decision, she would not regret it. If he went back, she would not be sad, but she would definitely be a little disappointed. Maybe Qin Sheng had other things to do. After Qing opened the door and saw it was Qin Sheng, she felt a little happy in her heart. But she was embarrassed and asked, "Where is Uncle?" "I'm a little sleepy. I went to rest," Qin Sheng said casually. Qing did not know what Qin Sheng wanted to do. She stood at the door and felt a little uneasy. Unexpectedly, Qin Sheng directly took her hand and walked inside. He closed the door and said, "I'm also sleepy. I won't go back tonight." Hearing this, Qing finally understood what was going on. She was a little happy, but also a little nervous. Although she had known Qin Sheng for a long time, they had only been together for once. She was not used to it yet. However, Qing had long prepared for this day. Not only did she prepare pajamas and men's toiletries for Qin Sheng, but she also bought some spare clothes for him, because it was still the same sentence. Since she had chosen to be Qin Sheng's woman, she would never regret it. She was already Qin Sheng's woman in this life. Even if Qin Sheng did not want her one day, she would always wait for him. Qin Sheng was already familiar with the environment of the room last time. It was completely designed according to Qing Er's style. It was simple and elegant, not so exaggerated. Whether it was the cloakroom or the bathroom, they were all very big. Qin Sheng liked the medium-sized balcony the most. At night, it was very comfortable to enjoy the breeze and drink a little wine there. Qin Sheng pulled Qing Er to sit on the bed. The atmosphere was a little ambiguous and awkward. Qing Er, who was inexperienced and had never been in love, did not know where to put her hands and feet, let alone say anything at this time. Fortunately, in order to ease the atmosphere, Qin Sheng said, "Did you miss me during this period?" "Yes," Qing replied in a low voice. Qin Sheng touched Qing Er's hair and said, "In the future, if you miss me, just call me. Don't be too shy. You are my woman. If you treat me like an outsider, I will feel uncomfortable." "Got it," Qing replied in the same voice. This made Qin Sheng somewhat at a loss. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was like a bad uncle abducting a little girl. After all, this was Qing Er. No one would dare to blaspheme her. Perhaps Qing Er felt that it was not good to do this. Finally, she plucked up her courage and said, "I will go to prepare the bathwater for you. Then let's bathe together." For some reason, Qin Sheng said such words to tease Qing Er, but he regretted it after saying it. What if Qing got angry? Fortunately, Qing was not angry. She just blushed and shook her head. No, this look was really too tempting. Qin Sheng, who was a little drunk, was really afraid that he could not control himself and directly took Qing Er on the spot. But in the end, he felt that he should not be too hasty. He should take it step by step and leave Qing a beautiful process. So he got up and walked in the bathroom, saying that he could casually take a bath. When the bathroom door was closed, Qing let out a long sigh of relief. She felt a little guilty and stamped her feet and complained, "I am so stupid." Chapter 854. A relationship by leaps and bounds in the end. What should have happened that night did not happen. After Qin Sheng came out of the shower, he received a call from his aunt and sister. Something unexpected happened in Beijing, and they needed to discuss countermeasures. So Qin Sheng sat on the balcony, smoking and talking on the phone. When Qing Er came out of the shower, Qin Sheng was still on the phone. It seemed that things were a little tricky. Qing did not want to disturb Qin Sheng, so she lay on the bed and waited for him. Who knew that she would fall asleep while waiting? Maybe she was too tired today and drank some wine. She could not resist the drowsiness and fell asleep just like that. Qin Sheng came out after the phone call and saw that Qing was asleep. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. He carefully covered her with the quilt, then lay beside her quietly and stared at her with interest. He could not help but lower his head and kiss her. He really did not know how Qing had persevered all these years. She did not lack pursuers since childhood, but did no one really enter her heart? Or was it because of Uncle Zhang's protection? Not long after, Qin Sheng was also sleepy. He just lay down beside Qing Er and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Qing subconsciously hugged Qin Sheng. Perhaps it was because she subconsciously knew that it was Qin Sheng, so she did not wake up. She slept very comfortably that night. In a resort hotel at the foot of Changbai Mountain in the far north, compared to the hot and stuffy Shanghai, this was really a holy place for summer vacation. Although it was summer, this high-standard resort hotel had a high occupancy rate. In the standalone villa of the hotel, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran were still awake. Yaya had gone to the mountain during the day and was too sleepy to sleep. This time, Zhao Anji brought Qin Ran and Yaya along. Zhuang Zhou and Nangong were also there. After all, in such a place, for safety reasons, Zhao Anji did not dare to be careless. After the Qin family's accident, Nangong seemed to disappear for a period of time. No one knew what she was doing. It seemed that Gong's son had arranged some tasks for her. She did not come back until Zhao Anji and the others came to Changbai Mountain. Zhuang Zhou had been in the northeast, so he came directly. "Aunt, we really don't care about the Chong in school." They finally couldn't sit still anymore. Taking advantage of the fact that the old man wasn't around, they started to purge the old man's trusted subordinates wantonly. Then they installed their own people. This was very dangerous for the Qin family. Zhao Anji said calmly. When you chose to listen to the Zhu family suggestion, you should have known that these things would happen. Since we have to wait, let's deal with them by remaining unchanged. Isn't it just a purge of the Qin family? This will happen sooner or later. They can do whatever they want. Qin Ran said angrily, and I know, but I still feel a little uncomfortable. The Chang and school was built by my father. It's really not easy for it to get to where it is today. I don't want to see them do this. Those people used to be her uncles. She had seen them many times since she was a child. In her eyes, they were all kind and amiable elders. Every time they saw her, they would smile. But now, when the Qin family was in the most difficult time, they wanted to put the Qin family into a dead end. It was a little windy outside, blowing the gauze curtain with the wind. Zhao Anji stood up and closed the balcony window. When she came back, she said, Shang just said that these are actually small fights. It's not a big deal. When they start to use their subordinates and start to move the Chang and school's assets, it won't be too late for us to fight back. Moreover, it all depends on the direction of your father's situation. Our worst plan is to completely give up the interests of the Chang and school. Qin Ran let out a long sigh and said, Alas, give it up, as long as my father is fine. She didn't know how long she could hold on. It was just the beginning. If one day, the Qin family would be exhausted. So what if she gave up these so-called interests? Zhao Anji comforted her and said, Ran, I've thought a lot these days. Even if we really lose everything, so what? As long as our family can be safe, it will be fine, right? Hearing her aunt's words, Qin Ran felt much better and stopped thinking about those things. People gathered and wealth scattered. No one could have both fish and bear paws. The Qin family couldn't be so greedy. Maybe her father had already thought of all the ways to retreat. In the dead of the night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Changbai Mountain's night was really charming. It was not something that could be experienced in Shanghai with its bright lights. The next morning, when Qing'er opened her eyes, she was shocked when she saw a man lying beside her. She wanted to scream subconsciously, but the next second, she remembered that it was Qin Sheng. Her memory from last night also flowed back. It seemed that she was waiting for Qin Sheng on the bed, while he was on the balcony making a call. Then she fell asleep unknowingly. After that, Qin Sheng must have seen her fall asleep after the call, so he didn't disturb her and just slept beside her. Thinking of this, Qing'er couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Why was she so stupid? Qin Sheng was still in a deep sleep. Qing was very embarrassed, so she quietly got up and washed up before going to prepare breakfast. It was such a beautiful night, but she couldn't sleep. Qing, more or less blamed herself. But soon after, her face turned red. What was she thinking about? When Qing prepared breakfast, Jiang Xianbang also woke up. Both him and Qing had a more regular schedule in the Writers' Association. Other than having social engagements at night and sleeping late, they almost always woke up at this time. He went downstairs and saw Qing preparing breakfast. Jiang Xianbang was a little surprised. Logically, she shouldn't have woken up so early. Hence, Jiang Xianbang walked into the dining room. After looking at Qing, Jiang Xianbang knew what was going on. It seemed that there was no movement last night. After all, he was experienced. He could tell what was going on with just a few looks. Uncle, you're up? Qing greeted, a little embarrassed. Jiang Xianbang casually sat down and picked up the newspaper. Is Qin Sheng still asleep? Yeah, he called a little late last night. He's still asleep now, Qing explained softly. Jiang Xianbang knew that this girl was shy, so he did not continue asking. He was really worried about this girl. Forget it. Let the young people deal with their own matters. Maybe everything will come naturally. Qin Sheng woke up after an hour. Seeing that Qing was not by his side, he knew that this girl had already woken up. He washed up and went downstairs. Downstairs, Qing was brewing tea and playing the guqin. Maybe it was because Qin Sheng had not woken up yet. Qing who used to practice at this time every day, did not practice today. When Qing saw Qin Sheng coming down, she quickly walked over and said, "You're up." Qin Sheng touched Qing Er's hair and said, "Why didn't you call me when you got up? I wanted you to sleep a little longer." Qing Er pursed her lips and chuckled. She seemed to enjoy Qin Sheng's head touching. It seemed that all women in love were like this. They did not care if you were a strong woman or a little fairy. Jiang Xianbang was fiddling with his antiques. Without raising his head, he asked, "How was your sleep? Are you used to it?" After saying that, Jiang Xianbang felt that his words were a little ambiguous. Qin Sheng did not know how to answer. Fortunately, Qing Er directly pulled Qin Sheng to the dining room, which avoided the awkwardness. After eating breakfast, drinking 2 pots of tea, and listening to a few songs, it was time for Qin Sheng to leave Middle Huaihai Road. Chang Baji was already waiting outside. Qing Er came out to send Qin Sheng off. She was still so reluctant when they parted. She knew that even if Qin Sheng returned to Shanghai, he would be very busy. Moreover, she did not know when they would return to Beijing and when they would meet again. So Qing Er was very reluctant to leave Qin Sheng. "Sorry, I fell asleep last night," Qing said with self-blame. Qin Sheng hugged Qing Er and said gently, "Silly girl, what are you thinking about? When the typhoon is over, I'll take you out to relax." Although she was reluctant, Qing Er still had to say goodbye. She watched Qin Sheng leave until the 2 cars disappeared at the end of the alley. Then she turned around and went back. After leaving Middle Huaihai Road, Qin Sheng went directly to Huarun 9 Mile Bund. How could he not visit his good Brother Lei when he returned to Shanghai? Brother Lei was seriously injured in the last incident. During this period of time, he had been recuperating. However, he had already been discharged from the hospital. Now Hao Lei was living in Han Bing's mansion in Huarun 9 Mile Bund. It was said that he could already walk, but it would take at least 2 months for him to fully recover. Qin Sheng was glad that Han Bing was taking care of Hao Lei. Otherwise, Hao Lei really did not know how he would spend the next 6 months. Qin Sheng was very busy in Shanghai. Now that such a big thing happened to the Qin family, it was impossible for him to take care of Hao Lei at all times. At most, he could only entrust someone to take care of him and then help Hao Lei hire 2 nannies. However, after a long time, it was easy for Hao Lei's mentality to have problems. Therefore, Qin Sheng was really grateful to Han Bing. Just like that time when he was in trouble, Lin Su had been taking care of him. If not for Lin Su, who knew what would happen to him now? As for how the relationship between Hao Lei and Han Bing was now, Qin Sheng did not need to guess. After such a long time of being together, the relationship between the two had changed qualitatively. Qin Sheng did not have the energy to take care of Han Bing, so he had been rejecting her. Perhaps Han Bing had already made a new choice. After all, since the Han family was in trouble, it was not him who had been accompanying Han Bing, but Hao Lei. When Qin Sheng and Chang Baji entered the door, Han Bing was helping Hao Lei to do recovery exercises. These were all learned by Han Bing from the doctor, just so that Hao Lei could recover faster. In addition to Han Bing herself, she also hired 2 caregivers, plus the nanny who cooked and cleaned every day. This house was quite lively, so Hao Lei seemed to be in a good mood. Hao Lei and Han Bing were both dressed in loose sportswear, looking like a couple. Qin Sheng was very happy to see them. It seemed like it was just as he thought. Han Bing and Hao Lei might have gone together, but he just did not know it yet. Or maybe they were not ready to tell him yet. To Han Bing, Hao Lei might not be the most suitable candidate, but he was definitely the best choice. Han Bing had seen how Hao Lei treated her in the past 2 years. It was only because she liked Qin Sheng previously that she directly ignored Hao Lei's existence. However, she knew that it was because of Hao Lei's careful care and protection that she could get through danger several times. Now, she had completely understood this man. He had all the qualities that a man should have. He was responsible, knew how to take care of others, and knew how to love her. Moreover, Hao Lei was also quite handsome and had been in the army before. Wasn't such a boyfriend good enough? To Hao Lei, the biggest benefit of this injury was that his relationship with Han Bing had improved by leaps and bounds. It was also because of this that he was incomparably happy every day, which was why he could recover so quickly. However, the only worry was that he did not know how to face Qin Sheng, which was somewhat embarrassing. Therefore, when Hao Lei and Han Bing saw Qin Sheng walking in, the two of them subconsciously immediately separated, as if they did not want Qin Sheng to see how intimate they were. Hao Lei almost lost his balance. Han Bing quickly held him, so that he did not fall to the ground. When Qin Sheng saw this scene, he could not help but laugh. Why did it look like he was here to catch them in the act? Chapter 855. Let me try. Chapter 855. Let me try. At this moment, the atmosphere here was somewhat awkward. Hao Lei's expression was very unnatural, while Han Bing was a little uneasy. The two nurses that they hired did not know what was going on, but they could feel that the atmosphere was not right. Qin Sheng did not know what to say, as if whatever he said would be wrong. In the end, Chang Baji could not help coughing a few times and said with a smile, "How long have you forgotten us? Why didn't you invite us in?" As the host, Han Bing came back to her senses. She signaled the two nurses to take care of Hao Lei. She calmed down and walked over quickly. She replied a little stiffly, "Long time no see." It had been more than a month. Besides going to work, Han Bing took care of Hao Lei. Her life was quite fulfilling and ordinary. There was no pressure in Shanghai. Tangxi was still secretly protecting her, so Han Bing was not in any danger. If it was in the past, Han Bing would often call or send Qin Sheng a WeChat message. But this time she almost did not. Was it because Qin Sheng was too busy and did not want to disturb her, or she did not want to make Hao Lei jealous? Hao Lei was already sitting on the sofa with the help of the nurses. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji sat next to him. Han Bing was a little embarrassed, so she went to the kitchen and said that she wanted to make some fruits for Qin Sheng and Chang Baji. Qin Sheng did not stop her. "How is your recovery?" Qin Sheng and Hao Lei did not need to be too polite, so they asked directly. Hao Lei laughed at himself and said, "Just like before, much better than before. The doctor said that I can do recovery training, and it will probably take 2 or 3 months for me to recover. Alas, I am half a disabled person now, and I can't do anything. Fortunately, Han Bing is taking care of me, or I really don't know what to do. Thanks to Han Bing, I have a lot less to worry about, or I would have to send you back to Xi'an. I'm a little worried about leaving you alone in Shanghai," Qin Sheng said in a low voice. No matter what, Hao Lei was injured because of him. After all, Hao Lei followed him to Shanghai and had been working for him. He had to be responsible for Hao Lei. Hao Lei did not like to be pretentious, so he replied, "We are brothers, so don't say these words." "Ha, then I won't say it. I hope you can recover soon." Qin Sheng laughed. At this time, Hao Lei looked at Qin Sheng and Chang Baji thoughtfully and said, "I heard that you have been in Beijing recently. Did something happen? I called you a few times, but you didn't pick up. In the end, you didn't even reply. I asked Han Bing, but she didn't know either. This made me a little worried." Qin Sheng didn't want Hao Lei to think too much. He said casually, "Something happened at home. It's nothing serious. Don't worry about it." Hao Lei sighed and said, "It's a pity that I can't help you. When I recover, we can fight side by side again." After so many years of friendship, Hao Lei was the only one who could keep going until now. Qin Sheng and Hao Lei were real brothers. They could put their lives in each other's hands. Therefore, there was no need for words. They were very clear about each other's feelings. Therefore, Qin Sheng would not treat Hao Lei badly. Qin Sheng patted Hao Lei's shoulder gently and said, "Take good care of yourself. We will wait for you." Although there were some things that Hao Lei didn't want to mention, every time he saw Qin Sheng, he couldn't help talking about Su Qin. That was the thing about Su Qin. He couldn't let go of it. He always felt that it would be a pity if they just separated like this. After all, he had watched them go from high school to college. So many years of love had broken up just like that. It was really sad. However, Qin Sheng had Lin Su now. Their relationship had also gone through a lot of setbacks. Hao Lei couldn't say anything more. But Su Qin was his friend after all. He hoped that Su Qin could be happy, but she didn't have a good life. Hao Lei still couldn't help asking, "You haven't contacted Su Qin since?" Qin Sheng was a little surprised. He didn't know why Hao Lei suddenly mentioned Su Qin. He and Su Qin hadn't contacted each other for a long time. Since the incident in Xi'an, Qin Sheng had made up his mind not to disturb Su Qin's life anymore. Su Qin was his first girlfriend of 6 years. He also hoped that Su Qin could be happy. He also knew that he couldn't give Su Qin happiness, so he made up his mind. "No, what's wrong?" Qin Sheng replied honestly. Hao Lei sighed and said, "If you have time, give Su Qin a call. It seems that she's not having a good life." Qin Sheng was stunned subconsciously. Not having a good life? What's wrong? Could it be that something happened to her? However, Qin Sheng didn't ask anything in the end. At this time, Han Bing finished washing the fruits and came out. Seeing that they were chatting happily and the atmosphere was not as awkward as before, she finally let out a long sigh of relief. Otherwise, she would really be restless. After Han Bing sat down, she chatted with Qin Sheng and Chang Baji about the old days. She asked them how they were doing recently, which was almost the same as what Hao Lei had asked just now. Qin Sheng also evaded with a smile. After all, Han Bing was different from Hao Lei. She didn't need to know too much about these trivial things. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji had lunch here. Tang Shi also came over. During this period of time, she had been in Shanghai. Apart from working for Bao Fan, he spent the rest of his time protecting Han Bing and taking care of Hao Lei. It was said that he had a girlfriend who was a nurse in Ruijin Hospital. The two of them were developing quite well now. Qin Sheng was also gratified by this. He hoped that everyone around him could live a good life. The old friends met and chatted happily. Qin Sheng asked Tang Shi to bring his girlfriend along next time. When they got married, he would give her a big gift. Tang Shi was a little embarrassed and said that he could do it. His current life was quite good, and he was quite happy with Brother Bao. Moreover, he also knew that this was just a happy occasion. After Brother Lei recovered, they might go to find Brother Qin. After lunch, Han Bing helped the nanny clean up. Qin Sheng and Hao Lei went to the balcony to enjoy the breeze. As a famous mansion in Shanghai, the scenery of Huaran Naimaobon was very good. The two of them chatted here. After a while, Qin Sheng asked, "How is it? How is it going with Han Bing?" Qin Sheng suddenly opened his mouth. Hao Lei was stunned and did not know how to answer. His relationship with Han Bing was indeed developing well, but until now, they had not confirmed their relationship. Whether it was him or Han Bing, they both felt awkward because of their relationship with Qin Sheng. After all, Han Bing used to like Qin Sheng, and Hao Lei and Qin Sheng had such a relationship. Why? Is it because of me? Qin Sheng said with a smile. Hao Lei still did not answer this question. He really liked Han Bing. He could also feel that Han Bing now liked him a little. Maybe it was because of the time they spent together. However, he was not sure whether Han Bing had let go of Qin Sheng or not. If she had not, his sudden confession might break the current situation. He was afraid that this kind of life would be ruined, and they could not even be friends in the future. Qin Sheng said happily, "When did you become so timid? Let me ask you one question. Do you like Han Bing?" "Yes." Hao Lei did not hesitate this time. He said very firmly. Qin Sheng patted Hao Lei's shoulder and said, "Brother, if you like her, then go after her. Don't think that if you go after Han Bing, just because she liked me in the past, you will let me down. If I, Qin Sheng, really do that, then I will be 2F** king useless. I can't give Han Bing happiness. Can't I let others give it to me? If someone could take care of Han Bing for me, I will be worthy of Uncle Han who died." "Lao Qin, do you really not have a grudge in your heart?" Hao Lei was still a little worried. This was his biggest worry. It did not mean that he did not dare to like Han Bing, just because Han Bing liked Qin Sheng. When Su Qin liked Qin Sheng, didn't he also like Su Qin? Qin Sheng chuckled and said, "We have been together for so many years. Am I that kind of person?" "I know." Hao Lei seemed to have made up his mind. The most important thing was that Qin Sheng had brought up this topic today. He did not have any taboo. Since he was so afraid of something, he just had to try his best to chase after her. As for the result, it was no longer important. He could not always like her so much, but not have the courage to chase after her. Qin Sheng finally held Hao Lei's hand and said, "If you can really be together, then take care of Han Bing for me. She's a good girl. I believe you will treat her well. Don't let her down." At this point, Hao Lei did not have to worry anymore. He nodded heavily and said, "Don't worry, I will." The biggest knot in Hao Lei's heart had been untied. Qin Sheng believed that the next time he saw them, their relationship might have been confirmed. Then he would be happy for them from the bottom of his heart. However, he did not know what Han Bing thought, so Qin Sheng had to ask her tentatively. The relationship between the three was indeed a little complicated. Han Bing used to like him because he appeared by her side when she was lonely and helpless. Not only did he help her deal with her father's affairs, but he also protected her from any harm. It was like a person who had finally found a ray of light in the darkness, so she placed all her hopes on him. In fact, this might not be true love. After Qin Sheng and Hao Lei finished talking, they returned to the living room. Han Bing had already packed up. It was almost time. Qin Sheng and Chang Baji were ready to leave. Han Bing personally sent them out. On the way out, Qin Sheng could talk to Han Bing. He was really worried about them. He hoped that they could break the stone in their hearts and get together as soon as possible. In this way, he would be completely relieved. During this period, I really thank you for taking care of Hao Lei, Qin Sheng said sincerely. Han Bing chuckled and said, "You don't have to be so polite. Brother Lei is also my friend. What's more, he was injured while protecting me. If I did not drag him down, he would not have suffered such a serious injury." I'm just saying. But it seems that you get along quite well during this period, Qin Sheng said casually. This made Han Bing a little at a loss. She did not know what Qin Sheng meant, so she could only smile awkwardly. Qin Sheng continued, "Han Bing, do you like Hao Lei? Don't worry about anything. Just answer your heart." Qin Sheng stared at Han Bing with sincerity. Han Bing could not avoid Qin Sheng's gaze at all. She wanted to say that she did not like him, but she could not do so no matter how hard she tried. Who asked her to like Hao Lei a little, but who asked her to like Qin Sheng in the past? This made her feel like she had been caught cheating, and now Qin Sheng was questioning her. A little, Han Bing finally answered honestly. Hearing this, Qin Sheng was overjoyed. In this way, things were already half done. You like me, and I like you. There were no family obstacles, and so on. Next, they would naturally be together. Qin Sheng said happily, "That's good. You can see that Hao Lei actually likes you too. Since you also like him, then I can rest assured and hand you over to him. I can also give Uncle Han an explanation." Han Bing lowered her head slightly. No one knew what she was thinking. It seemed that she could not like Qin Sheng anymore after she liked Hao Lei. But she really did not completely let go of Qin Sheng. "What's wrong? Are you afraid that I will overthink if you like me in the past, and now you like Hao Lei?" Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I won't overthink, because I hope you can be happy. Hao Lei is my brother. I know him very well, and I also know that he can give you happiness. So I hope you can be together. If it was someone else, I would be a little worried." Han Bing still did not say anything. Qin Sheng continued, "Do you know why I rejected you in the past? Because when Uncle Han handed you over to me, I really only treated you as a sister. But at that time, you were too dependent on me, so I did not dare to make you too sad. Because I want you to be happy every day. Now, finally, there is someone who can replace me. I can also let go completely." Han Bing finally raised her head and said, "Do you not want me anymore? That's why you said that on purpose? How could I not want you? I promised Uncle Han that I would take care of you, but I can't delay your happiness." Qin Sheng touched Han Bing's hair and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Hearing this, Han Bing gritted her teeth and asked, "Do you really think that Hao Lei is really suitable for me? After such a long time together, you should know each other very well. I think you should have the answer in your heart. So why not give it a try?" Qin Sheng continued to comfort Han Bing so that she would not think too much about other things. Ever since she realized that she liked Hao Lei, she gradually let go of Qin Sheng. This was because she seemed to know that Qin Sheng was no longer the Qin Sheng of the past. He had a lot of things to do and could not take care of himself at all. Qin Sheng could not give her what she wanted. If she kept insisting on it, she would be the one who would get hurt in the end. That was why she started to try to get in touch with others. During this period of time together, she was very clear in her heart that Hao Lei liked her too. In addition, she liked Hao Lei a little too. That was why they were so happy together. Thinking of this, and thinking of all the things that Hao Lei had done for her, Han Bing finally nodded and said, "Then I'll give it a try." Hearing this, Qin Sheng was completely satisfied. He did not expect that he could solve this trivial thing that had been entangled in his heart today. His job as a matchmaker was finally over. No matter what, he hoped that after they really got together, they could be happy. Chapter 856. Lovers finally got married. Qinsheng was really happy for them. He also let go of this worry completely. Otherwise, he would always worry about them. After all, they were all his closest friends. Qinsheng hoped that they could live a good life, better than him. Qinsheng's eyes lit up. After leaving Huara 9 Mile Bund, Qinsheng originally wanted to go to Green City Huangpu Bay because sister Shui Qingyan lived there. Qinsheng had been there several times before. He had not seen Sister Shui for such a long time, so he missed her more or less. Moreover, he could talk to Sister Shui about some things, but he did not know whether she was at the company or at home today. Therefore, Qinsheng made a call. Who knew that Shui Qingyan was not in Shanghai? She went back to Hangzhou 2 days ago and would only come back next week. After chatting with Shui Qingyan for a while, Qinsheng hung up the phone. Shui Qingyan did not ask much on the phone. Maybe it was a little inconvenient. After hanging up the phone, Qinsheng was ready to go back to rest. At this time, the sky outside the window was a little bit gloomy. The typhoon was coming soon, so he could only stay in Shanghai these days. The long wait had just begun, and no one knew when it would end. This was the most torturous, but there was no other way, as long as everything went smoothly. However, when he thought of the result that Uncle said the other day, Qinsheng was not confident in his heart. As soon as Qinsheng returned to his home in Lujiazui, he took Chang Baji and the others to the supermarket to buy a lot of things. The typhoon was coming soon, and it was said that this time the typhoon was quite strong. Qinsheng wanted to prepare more food and drinks, so that he did not have to go out to buy things. After coming back from the supermarket, Qinsheng slept for 2 hours. After waking up, he began to work in the kitchen, preparing dinner for Lin Su personally. He liked to cook, but sometimes he was too busy and did not have time. During this period in Shanghai, he should be quite free, so he could often cook for Lin Su. When Lin Su came home from work, she smelled the aroma of the kitchen. Qinsheng had told her over the phone that he would cook by himself tonight, so Lin Su came home directly after work. Before leaving, her uncle Lin Changhe did not forget to tease her, saying, "Only Qinsheng can make you work less hard. In the future, if you often stay up late to work overtime, I will call Qinsheng directly." Lin Changhe had planned to invite Qinsheng to dinner tonight, and Lin Zhe and his wife would also be there. It could be counted as a family dinner. Lin Changhe had not seen Qinsheng for a long time, and he was quite concerned about the affairs of the Qin family. However, something came up at the last minute, so he had to postpone the dinner. After all, Lin Changhe was a leader in the city, and it was not appropriate for him to refuse. Lin Su put down the things and ran straight into the kitchen. She said in surprise, "So sumptuous. Take a rest in the living room first. Dinner will be ready soon," Qinsheng said very comfortably. In the future, when he was old, he would cook for his children and grandchildren every day. Of course, his culinary skills still needed to be improved. At that time, he would learn from several masters of state banquet. With his intelligence and wisdom, he would definitely become a famous chef of his generation. Lin Su hugged Qinsheng from behind and then kissed his cheek gently. She said, "Thank you for your hard work. This is your reward." She wanted to stay in the kitchen for a while longer, but who knew that she would be driven out by Qinsheng directly? She had to leave, feeling wronged. She went back to her room and changed her clothes. Then she cleaned up the house and put away the things that Qinsheng bought from the supermarket one by one. Tomorrow was Sunday, and she could have a good rest for 2 days. The most important thing was that she was accompanied by Qinsheng. Dinner was ready soon. At this time, it was already very windy outside, and a storm was coming. Qinsheng did not forget to close the doors and windows, and so on. In this kind of weather, it was the most comfortable to stay at home. Maybe because Qinsheng cooked by himself, Lin Su was in a very good mood today. Usually, she would eat half a bowl of rice at most. At most, she would eat half a bowl of rice. Today, she finished a bowl of rice and ate a lot of vegetables. Qinsheng kept putting food in her bowl. She had to eat even if she did not want to. He even said that she had lost so much weight in such a short time. No, no, I must make you fatter these few days. Otherwise, you won't be beautiful anymore. Of course, Lin Su knew that Qin Sheng was joking, so she felt very warm in her heart. She was very lucky to meet such a man who tolerated everything about her. They had almost never quarreled or had conflicts. They would solve problems calmly at any time. The most important thing was that they really had a tacit understanding with each other, just like each other in this world. After dinner, Lin Su wanted to wash the dishes, but she still failed to persuade Qin Sheng. She was chased to the sofa by him to watch TV. Qin Sheng did not forget to wash the fruits and set the snacks for her. He said that she had been working hard during this period and should enjoy life for the next few days. After that, he went to the kitchen to clean up the mess. After finishing these trivial things, Qin Sheng nestled on the sofa and accompanied Lin Su to watch TV. Lin Su did not want to work overtime, so she lay quietly in Qin Sheng's arms. This kind of life was really very comfortable, as if they had returned to the good times in Xiamen. When they left Xiamen, they knew that that kind of life would not happen again. As expected, it was like this. No one's life would be the same. Qin Sheng dealt with the family affairs, while Lin Su was busy with the company's affairs. These were also part of life. Then, they would go home to cook and watch TV. The rhythm was similar to that of most families. This was also part of life. When they went to sleep at night, there was lightning and thunder outside, and it was already raining heavily. In addition, the wind was whimpering. Lin Su hugged Qin Sheng tightly and could not bear to let go at all. Qin Sheng deliberately scared Lin Su, saying that he would tell her a few ghost stories. Lin Su was so scared that she crawled into the bed and did not dare to come out. The two fell asleep while playing. Half a day of dull married life came to an end. In the next 3 days, the strongest typhoon of the year passed through Shanghai. It was a mess outside. Qin Sheng and Lin Su stayed at home. Lin Su sometimes worked and sometimes accompanied Qin Sheng to watch movies. Other than cooking for Lin Su, Qin Sheng read books, listened to songs, and watched movies. As for those things in the Qin family, Qin Sheng did not even think about it. He had not been so relaxed for a long time. He did not need to think about anything and just simply enjoyed life. Moreover, with Lin Su accompanying him, this was a very happy thing. During this period, Xia Ding knew that he had returned to Shanghai, so he tricked Qin Sheng to go over for a drink. Qin Sheng was too lazy to go out, so he gave a perfunctory answer. Xia Ding was so angry that he said that Qin Sheng really valued love over friendship and believed that he would tell Lin Su about him picking up girls in Beijing. Xia Ding was so angry that he kept scolding Qin Sheng for being cunning. After the typhoon was over, Qin Sheng still stayed at home. It seemed that he did not want to go anywhere. Lin Su resumed her regular work life, but she got off work on time every day. She did not work late, as usual. Qin Sheng became a good family man. He prepared breakfast and dinner for Lin Su on time every day, and spent the rest of his time reading and meditating. That night, Lin Changhe invited Qin Sheng to dinner. Qin Sheng was still too lazy to go out, so he cooked for Lin Changhe and Lin Zhe. Lin Su did not have a problem with this. Her relationship with her family had improved. After all, they were all her relatives. Of course, she would not refuse. During dinner, Lin Changhe chatted with Qin Sheng casually. Lin Zhe and his wife were somewhat restrained, especially Lin Zhe's wife, who did not treat Lin Su well in the past. Now that Lin Su had become the helmsman of the Lin family, Lin Zhe's wife had a problem with Lin Su in the beginning. It was not until Lin Zhe had to lower his head and change that she took the initiative to ease the relationship with Lin Su. However, it seemed that Lin Su did not have a good impression of his sister-in-law. Most of the time, she was just polite to her sister-in-law. It seemed that she was more like an outsider than an outsider. After drinking a little, Lin Changhe could not help but say, "Qin Sheng, as your second uncle, there is something I have to say. Don't blame me for being talkative." Qin Sheng said calmly, "Second uncle, if you have something to say, just say it. You are the elder, you can say anything. Actually, it's nothing. It's just that the old lady has asked you several times about your relationship with Lin Su. She wants to know when the two families' heads will meet and settle your marriage. I know that your family has been in turmoil recently. It's not appropriate to say this now. However, the old lady's health is getting worse and worse. She is really worried about her granddaughter, Su, Lin Chong has said embarrassedly. This was a political task assigned to him by the old lady. He had to finish it before he could report to his family. Otherwise, he did not know how to answer the old lady. Secondly, he also hoped that Qin Sheng and Lin Su could settle their marriage as soon as possible. Although he knew that the relationship between Qin Sheng and Lin Su was stable, if it was delayed for one more day, accidents might happen. In particular, they still did not know the opinions of Qin Sheng's family and their attitude towards Lin Su. Lin Su subconsciously pursed her lips and looked at her second uncle with a slight frown. Although her grandmother had asked her several times, the current situation of the Qin family was indeed not suitable. As for the inside story of the Qin family, the Lin family and Lin Chang'an naturally did not know. If they had known that something had happened to Qin Chang'an, they would not have asked about it. At this moment, Qin Sheng obviously had no time to care about anything else. Lin Zhe stared at Qin Sheng, waiting for his answer. However, before he opened his mouth, his wife could not help but say, "Qin Sheng, second uncle is right. When will you get married? As your sister-in-law, I should prepare the dowry for Su as soon as possible." Lin Zhe stared at his wife and signaled her not to talk nonsense. This was not the occasion for a woman to speak. Obviously, Lin Su was also somewhat unhappy. She did not want to see the Lin family pressuring Qin Sheng. No matter what, Qin Sheng had to answer this question. He thought for a while and said, "Second uncle, I know my grandmother cares about it. I have also thought about it. However, our family has some troubles recently. My father may not come here for a while. When he is finished, the elders of the two families will definitely meet. However, my grandmother, small aunt, my sister, and other relatives have already met Lin Su. They are quite satisfied with her. You don't have to worry too much about it." Lin Changhe asked curiously, "Your father hasn't met Lin Su yet. Is he not satisfied with her?" Lin Changhe said this more or less anxiously. Logically speaking, he should not have said this. Maybe he really regarded Qin Sheng as one of his own, so he did not have any scruples. Qin Sheng smiled somewhat embarrassedly as he said, "No, he just can't leave now." Lin Su did not want to continue this topic. She directly said, "Second uncle, let's not talk about this. I will tell my grandmother later. You can continue to drink." Lin Chang'e felt that something was wrong. Obviously, Qin Sheng had something difficult to say. Otherwise, his answer would not be so ambiguous. It seemed that Lin Su was also helping to smooth things over. Lin Changhe did not continue this topic. At night, after taking a shower and lying on the bed, Lin Su apologized to Qin Sheng in embarrassment for what second uncle and the rest had said today. Qin Sheng held Lin Su in his arms and smiled, saying that it was his fault and that second uncle and the rest had nothing to do with it. Although Qin Sheng said so, Lin Su still blamed herself a little. After Qin Sheng comforted her for a while, Lin Su stopped thinking about it. At noon the next day, after staying in Shanghai for a long time, Qin Sheng finally found time to meet the group of people of the Qin family in Shanghai. Although Bao Fan had won Qin Sheng's trust, who knew what those people below him would think. Consequently, Qin Sheng, the future successor of the Qin family, had to handle the situation in person. Battlefield literature. Chapter 857. Guessing for a long time, the Qin family was not the only major shareholder behind the Chang'an Group. Therefore, although Qin Chang'an was pushed to be the helmsman of the Chang'an Group, and the Qin family was also the biggest shareholder of the Chang'an Group, the other major shareholders behind them could not be underestimated. Therefore, when they encountered all kinds of major events, they could only make decisions after discussion, not by Qin Chang'an alone. Everyone was clear that the reason why the Chang'an Group could become so powerful today was not only because of Qin Chang'an's ability, but also because of the complicated background and connections of many major shareholders behind the Chang'an Group. Therefore, the Chang'an Group was not only the Qin family Chang'an Group, but also everyone's Chang'an Group. It was only because Qin Chang'an was at the forefront that people subconsciously thought it was the Qin family's Chang'an group. In that case, the Chang'an system would not only belong to the Qin family, and Qin Chang'an would not really sacrifice himself for the Chang'an system. He still had to think about the Qin family. Moreover, before the Chang'an system was established, Qin Chang'an had already established a family business for the Qin family. Gongsun and Bao Fan belonged to the Qin family. Gongsun could be considered as Qin Chang'an's most trusted subordinate. Gongsun was in charge of most of the things in the Qin family. Apart from Gongsun, Qin Chang'an had 3 other trusted subordinates, who were all placed in more important positions. They were Bao Fan in Shanghai, He Yong in Shenzhen, and Song Shixin in the northeast. Although Qin Chang'an was in trouble now, Gongsun was still there. Therefore, he could still suppress these 3 people. If Gongsun was not there, people might have already been moved. Currently, Bao Fan had gained Qin Sheng's trust. Song Shixin in the northeast was restrained by Zhuang Zhou, so he dared not act rashly. Only He Yong in Shenzhen was the most worrying. He was in charge of the Qin family's interests in Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Macau. If he was not obedient, the Qin family would suffer heavy losses. Last time, when Zhao Anji went to Shenzhen, she chatted with He Yong a lot. At that time, He Yong's attitude was very firm, which was that he would live and die together with the Qin family. However, after Qin Chang'an's accident, He Yong, who was in Shenzhen, made the biggest move. This made Gongsun very unhappy. Even if Bao Fan, He Yong, and Song Shixin did not have any ideas, who could control the group of people below them? Since ancient times, many great figures had risen to power because they were forcefully pushed up by their subordinates. The most famous example was Zhao Kuangyin, the founder of the Song dynasty, who wore the yellow robe. Therefore, it was not unreasonable for Bao Fan to ask Qin Sheng to meet the group of people below him. As the heir of the Qin family, he had to show up in person to control the situation. The location of the meeting was arranged by Bao Fan. Chang Baji and the rest were a little worried. After all, it was different from the past. Any kind of danger could appear, so they had to be careful. Brother Wu and Ba He brought 4 bodyguards with them. These bodyguards were the Qin family's trusted aides and were not from Shanghai. The address was a high-standard restaurant at Dianshan Lake in Qingpu. Qin Sheng was escorted to Dianshan Lake by Chang Baji and the others. On the way, he received a call from Xue Qingyan, saying that she had returned to Shanghai. She asked when they had time to meet. Qin Sheng said that night, and Xue Qingyan agreed. Dianshan Lake was a lively place in Qingpu. Qin Sheng had been to the Zhuzhizhou Anlu Hotel here before, which was a relatively top hotel in Shanghai. When their 3 cars arrived at the entrance of the hotel, Bao Fan had been waiting for a long time with his 5 subordinates who had enough weight. Bao Fan personally opened the door for Qin Sheng and welcomed him with a smile. "Young master, thank you." Qin Sheng patted Bao Fan's shoulder politely. "Uncle Bao, sorry to keep you waiting. It's a little far." In front of so many outsiders, Qin Sheng still had to give Bao Fan enough respect. They could call each other brothers in private, but if he called Bao Fan Brother Bao, it would be too casual. Uncle Bao was more suitable. "Young master, please come in." Bao Fan stretched out his hand respectfully. At this time, Bao Fan's 5 confidants looked at Qin Sheng at the same time and said respectfully, "Young master." Qin Sheng nodded at them with a smile on his face, which could be regarded as a greeting. He was neither close nor distant. Although he really wanted to know what these people were thinking, it was not the time. Bao Fan knew that although Qin Sheng had been in Shanghai for so many years, he did not like the cuisines in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai. He preferred Sichuan and Hunan cuisines, so he had ordered dishes in advance. Most of them were relatively spicy. Fortunately, this was a restaurant that he liked to entertain VIPs, and they could cook all kinds of cuisines. The private room was very elegant. There was a beautiful woman playing the zither to liven things up. There was a tea artist waiting by the side. There were a few imitation antiques placed around. At least the atmosphere was not bad. In addition, the huge floor-to-ceiling windows facing Dianshan Lake made the atmosphere really good. As the heir of the Qin family, Qin Sheng naturally sat on the main seat. Bao Fan and Chang Baji sat on both sides of Qin Sheng. Brother Wu and Ba he did not sit at the table. In fact, Brother Wu was qualified to sit at the table. He just wanted to take care of Bahi, so the two of them drank tea at the back, and at the same time, they were alert to everyone present. Everyone, I think I don't need to introduce this person next to me. Some of you may have met him before, but this is the first time for some of you, but you will be familiar with him in the future. Let's welcome young master back to Shanghai. Bao Fan used a language that was not particularly official. The crowd applauded one after another. Most of them were sizing up Qin Sheng, the future successor of the Qin family and the current backbone of the Qin family. Some of them had seen Qin Sheng before. After all, Qin Sheng had caused quite a stir in Shanghai. Some of them were in charge of other affairs and had not seen Qin Sheng before. It was not until today that they finally saw him in person. Young master, let me introduce you first. After the applause ended, Bao Fan took the initiative to say, he was the person in charge of Shanghai, so naturally, he had to introduce these people to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng smiled and nodded, waiting for Bao Fan to introduce them. Bao Fan spoke slowly. Every time he finished introducing a person, that person would stand up and greet Qin Sheng respectfully. Qin Sheng walked over and shook hands with them unhurriedly. This was already very polite, and he could get close to everyone present. After the introduction, the waiter had already served all the dishes. At this time, Bao Fan also took the opportunity to say, since everyone already knows our young master, let him say a few words. Everyone applauded again. Qin Sheng stood up happily. Although it was the first time he had encountered such a scene after returning to the Qin family, he had more or less experienced it before. Even if he had not eaten pork, he had seen a pig run. It was just that during this period of time, when he returned to the Qin family, he had never taken the initiative to deal with the affairs of the Qin family. This time, if it was not for Uncle Gongsun's reminder, Qin Sheng thought that he would not do it for a while. Shanghai can be considered as my second hometown. I went to university in Shanghai, and I also worked in Shanghai before. After staying here for so many years, I am full of feelings for this place, so I like Shanghai very much. Most of you also know that I used to live with my grandfather, and it has not been long since I returned to the Qin family. However, as the successor of the Qin family, I have to bear this responsibility and pressure. Moreover, now the Qin family is in turmoil, so I have to do all these. Shanghai is an important town of the Qin family, and Uncle Bao is the direct descendant that the old man absolutely trusts. He is also a person that I respect. We have been through a lot before, and some of you also knew me at that time, so Uncle Bao and I know each other very well. We have been friends for a long time, and Uncle Bao is also the closest person to me in the Qin family. I have absolute trust in Uncle Bao, so this time when I come back to Shanghai, I take the initiative to meet with you. Qin Sheng spoke with fervor and assurance, without any pressure at all. It could be said that these words were at his fingertips. At least, he grasped the atmosphere and strength skillfully. After saying these words, Qin Sheng continued. As we all know, the Qin family is in turmoil now, and many people are also anxious. I don't know what others think, and I don't want to guess, but both the Qin family and I have absolute trust in Shanghai. Whether in the past or in the future, Shanghai will be the absolute center of the Qin family. As long as the Qin family gets better and better, we will definitely not treat you badly. Of course, these words are just my words. In this special period, you also have a lot of questions and want to say. Today, you can say what you want to say. Let's take it as a chat between friends. Don't be too shy, and don't care about each other's identities. Thank you. Okay. After Qin Sheng finished speaking, Bao Fan was the first to applaud. The others also applauded one after another. It could be said that Qin Sheng's speech was logical, sincere, and progressive, which made people applaud. It also made people understand Qin Sheng's ability. If he was just a rich playboy who only knew how to squander, they would naturally be worried about the future of the Qin family. After the applause stopped, Bao Fan raised his glass and said, "As for the next words, let's talk while eating. Now, let's toast to young master together and welcome him home again." The dinner had just started, and everyone seemed to be in no hurry to express their various opinions or make things difficult for the future successor of the Qin family. Although before Qin Sheng came, Bao Fan had already warned them not to speak carelessly today, or he would not let them off easily. For the sake of their common interests and future, it seemed that they did not intend to give up just like that. After a few glasses of wine, the atmosphere became more lively. The others all came forward to toast to Qin Sheng, or would try to get closer to him. Of course, Qin Sheng did not refuse any of them. He could still handle this kind of situation. Chang Baji did not drink, and everyone knew his identity. After Bao Fan helped him out, no one came to find him again. After 3 rounds of wine, the real confrontation officially began. After Bao Fan's few trusted subordinates looked at each other for a while, someone finally stood up. His name was Su Zheng, absolutely Bao Fan's trusted subordinate. Qin Sheng had already met him before, and their relationship was not bad. He toasted to Qin Sheng again, smiled, and said, "Young master, I have a question that I have always wanted to ask. Maybe it is also what everyone wants to ask, but it may be difficult for you to say it, so I will ask it on your behalf. If we have offended young master in any way, I hope young master will not be offended." Hearing Su Zheng's words, Bao Fan stared at him unhappily and said, "Su Zheng, sit down and eat." Qin Sheng's expression changed slightly, but he still remained calm and said, "Uncle Bao, it's okay. Since brother Su has a question, let him say it directly." The lively atmosphere just now instantly froze. Everyone stared at Su Zheng, waiting for him to say the question that everyone had been guessing for a long time. Finally, Su Zheng opened his mouth slowly and said, "Has Master Qin been arrested?" Chapter 858. Bao Fan was grateful to the Qin family because everything he had was given to him by the Qin family. Moreover, he knew more inside stories than many people. Therefore, even if the Qin family was in turmoil now, Bao Fan knew what he should do. However, Bao Fan's subordinates did not think so. They care more about their own interests and future and would not think too much about the Qin family. Even if Bao Fan was willing to be loyal to the Qin family, they might not be willing to do so. They hoped that Bao Fan could make the right choice to ensure that their interests would not be harmed. Therefore, when the time came, they might force Bao Fan to do something. However, the premise was that they had to figure out the situation of the Qin family. However, even if Bao Fan told them, they might not believe it. Now that Qin Sheng was in Shanghai, they finally had a chance to ask him face to face. Su Zheng threw out such a tricky question and directly questioned Qin Sheng about the current big rumors. After Bao Fan heard it, he directly scolded him. "Su Zheng, how dare you? Where's this place? It's not your place to behave atrociously." Of course, Bao Fan was angry. Su Zheng was his subordinate. If he questioned Qin Sheng like this, it would make Qin Sheng doubt whether it was his idea or not. It would easily destroy the trust he had built up with Qin Sheng. Su Zheng said disapprovingly, "Big brother, I just asked on behalf of my brothers. If you think I went too far, you can punish me in any way." "You." Bao Fan pointed at Su Zheng and felt somewhat helpless. At this time, Qin Sheng opened his mouth and said, "Uncle Bao, what are you doing? Why are you angry? Brother Su is just asking casually. Didn't I say just now that you can ask any question? This should be the question that everyone is concerned about." It's okay, it's okay. "Young master, please give us an answer," Su Zheng said persistently. Qin Sheng did not care too much about it. At least they were in Shanghai today, and there was no problem on Bao Fan's side. Therefore, it did not matter if Su Zheng asked this question. If this were in Shenzhen or the Northeast, and others asked this question, Qin Sheng would think that today would be a Hongmen banquet. Qin Sheng stood up slowly, walked out of his seat, and walked to the tea artist behind him. He casually picked up a cup of superior oolong tea, turned around, looked at Su Zheng and the others, and replied, "Brother Su, who told you this news?" Su Zheng said calmly, "That's what people are saying. It's said that Master Qin has been arrested, and the whole Chang and family is in turmoil. As for our Qin family, except for Shanghai, people in the Northeast, Shenzhen, and other places are getting restless. Young master, please tell us not to worry." Otherwise, why haven't we heard from Master Qin recently? Qin Sheng sipped his tea gently and said, "Given my current status, how powerful do you think the other party would be if he was caught? How powerful would he be if he wanted to hurt the Qin family and the Chang'an family? Do I still need you to guess?" He reckoned that by now, the news, newspapers, and the internet had already covered it. Taking a step back, if the old man was really arrested, do you think I would still be standing here talking to you? Right now, I should be in Beijing presiding over the overall situation. How can I care about you guys? After Qin Sheng finished his words, everyone looked at each other and discussed in a low voice. It seemed to be true. What Qin Sheng said was not unreasonable. They also wondered why Qin Sheng came to Shanghai. How could he return to Shanghai at this time? However, Su Zheng did not stop there. He pressed on and said, "Young master, you are right. But please give us the answer directly. We are all uneducated people and don't want to guess too much." Well, the truth is that the old man was not arrested. He was just assisting in the investigation. As you know, a big shot in the financial field has been in trouble recently. It is said that the old man has something to do with it, so he went to assist in the investigation. Moreover, this is not the first time that the old man has assisted in the investigation. It's just that this matter is a little tricky, so people spread the rumor. Besides, our Qin family has been in Sijio City for so many years. How could something go wrong so easily? Qin Sheng said firmly. He was just assisting in the investigation, not being arrested. However, when people heard the news, they inevitably felt shocked and doubtful. They were shocked because something had happened to Master Qin, and doubtful because they did not believe what Qin Sheng said. Su Zheng said thoughtfully, "Young master, can we believe what you said?" Bao Fan was a little annoyed and said, "Su Zheng, I think you don't want to do it anymore." In fact, Qin Sheng was very glad to meet them today. If not for this meeting, he would not know that the people below him had been so turbulent. This was still in Bao Fan, Shanghai, where he could suppress everything. But what about the situation in Shenzhen and the Northeast now? Qin Sheng could not help but feel a little scared. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. But I want to ask, even if something really happened to the old man, what do you want? He had said all the polite words that should be said, and it was time for Qin Sheng to show his tough side. He said sternly, "Don't you recognize me? Or do you want to set up your own family? Who gave you the courage?" Hearing this, everyone's face changed. Only then did they realize that they did not pay attention to Qin Sheng and only regarded him as a young junior. In other words, although Qin Sheng was the future heir of the Qin family, he was after all not Master Qin. "Young master, calm down," Bao Fan immediately replied. Su Zheng and the others also said one after another, "Young master, we didn't mean that." Qin Sheng slammed the table fiercely and said angrily, "Now the Qin family has not fallen yet, but you are already like this. If the Qin family really falls, when the tree falls, the monkeys will scatter. Won't the tree fall? I think you people have not figured out the situation yet. The reason why the Qin family can come to this point today is not only because of luck. Even if the old man is gone, do you really think that you can have no scruples? I want to see who dares to stand out and rebel against the Qin family at that time. If there is really such a person, rest assured that I will respect you. But at the same time, I will also tell you why the Qin family is the Qin family." Qin Sheng had been amiable just now, but now he was furious. They were two completely different concepts. At this time, everyone could feel how strong Qin Sheng's aura was. He was not like the young people of the same age at all, but more like Master Qin's aura. The atmosphere instantly became awkward. No one dared to say anything, let alone question Qin Sheng. At this time, the most suitable person to speak was naturally Bao Fan, and Bao Fan also spoke at the right time. He said with a smile, "Young master, rest assured. I can swear that even if something happens to Master Qin, I will advance and retreat together with the Qin family until death. If anyone dares to betray me, you don't need to do anything. I will directly kill them." Today, he was originally testing Qin Sheng, but now things did not turn out as he wished. Su Zheng replied in a hurry, "Young master, don't think too much. We're just worried about the Qin family." But as Big Brother said, No matter what happens, we will stand by the Qin family. Yes, young master, don't worry. Yes, young master. How could we do that? Young master, don't think too much. Everyone began to reply in order to show their loyalty in front of Qin Sheng. As for whether Qin Sheng was really angry today, they did not dare to speculate casually. Qin Sheng suddenly laughed out loud and said, "Ha, sorry. I might have been a little harsh just now. Actually, I didn't mean that. Don't treat me like an outsider. How can I not believe you? Even if I don't believe you, can I not believe Uncle Bao? Let's not talk about this. I'm still very happy to see you today. Let's not talk about these trivial things later. Just drink and don't go home until we're drunk." "Don't go home until we're drunk," everyone replied. Therefore, under Bao Fan's mediation, the atmosphere was finally not so awkward. Although everyone had their own ulterior motives, at least it was lively on the surface. Everyone toasted and apologized to Qin Sheng to ease the tension. The meeting ended like this. Lunch did not end until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The others left Yinshan Lake one after another. Bao Fan was not in a hurry to leave. He took Qin Sheng to a place by the lake to drink tea to sober up. The two sat by the window, thoughtfully. They were both a little drunk, but not to the extent of being unconscious. "How is it? What did you gain today?" Bao Fan asked with a smile. Qin Sheng let out a long sigh and said, "Brother Bao, I have to thank you. If I didn't meet you, I really don't know how serious the situation would be." "Why do you say that?" Bao Fan asked with interest. Qin Sheng replied slowly, "This is still Shanghai with you. The group of people below are like this, but what about Shenzhen and the Northeast? I can trust you, but can I trust the Yong in Shenzhen and Song Shixin in the Northeast? I haven't even seen them. How can I trust them?" Bao Fan took a sip of tea and said in a low voice, "Things may not be so difficult. It's all my subordinates' fault. If they offended you in any way today, don't take it to heart. I'll teach them a lesson later." "That won't happen. Brother Bao won't teach them a lesson. I should be more grateful to them for speaking freely," Qin Sheng said truthfully. If he was really suppressed by Bao Fan, he would not know these things. Bao Fan frowned and pondered for a long time before saying, "Young master, to be honest, it's better to be prepared for danger in times of peace. At least I know that Yong in Shenzhen has a lot of ideas. He is in charge of some things in Guangdong and Hong Kong and Macau. If something happens to him, it will be a big blow to the Qin family." "Well, you're right." Qin Sheng nodded silently. Bao Fan was very confused. Didn't Master Qin leave a backup plan? Or did Gongsun not prepare for it? I didn't care about these things before. I was only thinking about how to deal with the old man's affairs. Uncle Gongsun didn't let me get involved. However, after this time in Shanghai, I will definitely go back and have a talk with Uncle Gongsun. Otherwise, if something really goes wrong, it will be too late to regret it. Qin Sheng sighed sincerely. Although the Qin family's current strategy was to wait, they could still make arrangements in advance secretly. Bao Fan did not know why Gongsun did this. Maybe he had his considerations and scruples. However, the most important thing for the Qin family now was not these. The most important thing was Master Qin. Therefore, Bao Fan replied, "Young master, these are not important. The important thing is Master Qin's affairs. As long as Master Qin is fine, no one dares to make trouble. Therefore, young master, you don't have to worry too much." This time, Qin Sheng did not say anything. Who did not think so? But could the old man really be fine? Chapter 859. Everything will change eventually when the tree falls. The monkeys scatter. Qin Sheng finally understood the meaning of these two sentences. Wasn't the Qin family pushed by the crowd this time? Everything was like dominoes. When the first piece fell, if you couldn't stop the danger, then the second piece would fall, and so on. In the end, the whole army would be wiped out. Qin Sheng's eyes lit up. When the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. People's hearts were often like this. When the water rose, people would rise. The Qin family was afraid that the fire at the city gate would bring disaster to the fish in the moat. Even if it did not bring disaster to the fish in the pond, The Qin family could not contain these great masters. Naturally, there would be a better choice, which was also inevitable. Therefore, now all the problems were exposed. As long as the matter of Qin Chang'an had a final result, the Qin family would be in two lines of life and death. Qin Sheng and Bao Fan left after chatting for half an hour. Bao Fan meant that they did not need to care about Shanghai and that he could just keep an eye on it. However, Qin Sheng had to worry about other things. He did not have the ability to do so. Qin Sheng did not have the ability to do so. Qin Sheng did not have the ability to do so. On the way back to the city, Qin Sheng took a nap. After all, he couldn't go to see Sister Qin Yin so drunk. He would be more energetic after a nap. It just happened that the effect of alcohol was almost gone. Shui Qingyan was still waiting for Qin Sheng at the same place, which was Shangshan Ruoshui, which was under renovation. Now it was in full swing. It was estimated that it would take 3 months to reopen at the end of December, but Shui Qingyan was not in a hurry. She left everything to the team. Moreover, Mizan and Yu Fengji were watching. If there were any problems, she would communicate and deal with it in time. Occasionally, she would come to check. At least, she was much better than Qin Sheng. After the typhoon, the courtyard of Shangshan Ruoshui was a little messy. The staff was cleaning. Qin Sheng's cars were stopped when they came in, but they were naturally let go after he reported his identity. It was particularly cool today. Shui Qingyan, Yu Fengji, and Liu Yuan were waiting for them at the top of the building. Dinner had already been prepared, and there was no lack of wine. Qin Sheng came up and saw the wine. Before Qin Sheng said hello, Yu Fengji said, "Oh, you are still sneaking back to Shanghai. If Sister Qin Yin didn't tell us, we really didn't know. Since when did you become so sarcastic?" Qin Sheng asked as he looked at the crowd. Yu Fengji was still so sexy and charming, but her eyes were full of hidden bitterness, like a resentful woman who had been married for many years. Liu Yuan, on the other hand, was dressed like a contractor with dust all over his body. He was responsible for monitoring the progress of the renovation every day and had just helped them with some work. As for Shui Qingyan, she was still the same Shui Qingyan. Nothing had changed. Ms. Chong Sam was always so noble and charming. Especially at this moment, she was wearing a black dress. Her legs were slightly crossed, revealing a pair of slender and beautiful legs. She was very elegant as she drank red wine, just like a master's artistic painting. Yu Fengji insisted, "Did I say anything wrong?" Qin Sheng did not dare to continue to be entangled with Yu Fengji. He knew that this woman would not let him off easily. At this time, he had already walked in front of everyone and greeted Shui Qingyan in a low voice. "Sister, you look a little tired." Shui Qingyan put down the glass of red wine, looked at Qin Sheng gently, and said, "It's like this every time I come back to Hangzhou. I can't avoid all kinds of social activities. It's really exhausting." Qin Sheng casually sat next to Shui Qingyan. Liu Yuan was very polite and greeted Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng chatted with him for a while. Yu Fengji was still sulking. Qin Sheng had to admit defeat and comfort her for a while. Then Yu Fengji calmed down. He did not know how to deal with the relationship with Yu Fengji so far. He could only say that he would let nature take its course. He did not want to be too deliberate with Yu Fengji. Maybe a lot of things would be so indifferent slowly. Yu Fengji was ready to pour wine for Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng politely refused. "I don't drink. I drank too much white wine at noon. I will just chat with you for a while." Because Yu Fengji and Liu Yuan were still there, Qin Sheng and Shui Qingyan did not talk about anything about the Qin family. They just talked about Shangshan Ruoshui. Mizan was not here because she was on a business trip. So Liu Yuan and Yu Fengji reported the current situation of Shangshan Ruoshui. For example, the shareholders had transferred all the funds to the account of Shangshan Ruoshui. The renovation progress was still smooth. Next, they would re-recruit and train the staff of each department. Everything was going according to plan. After listening to them, Qin Sheng was very positive about their work. He said that he might not have the energy to take care of Shangshan Ruoshui recently, so he left it all to them. He trusted the whole team. In fact, there were some words that Qin Sheng did not say. That was, not only recently, he might not have time to take care of Shangshan Ruoshui in the future. When the Qin family was in trouble, there were too many things for him to worry about. He had long been unable to take care of Shangshan Ruoshui. After talking about these things, Liu Yuan and Yu Fengji left, deliberately leaving time for Xue Qingyin and Qin Sheng. Naturally, they knew that they still had something to talk about. After waiting for them to leave, Xue Qingyin directly asked, "What's wrong? Did you run to Shanghai to take refuge?" "No, I just want to relax, or to stay away from trouble." Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Xue Qingyin took a sip of red wine to calm down and said, "Stay away from trouble? Can you stay away from trouble? Tell me, what's the situation now? I will help you analyze it." Xue Qingyin knew some inside story. When Qin Sheng told her, she intentionally inquired about it from her friends. She thought that the situation was not so serious. Later she knew that this time was different. Because something really happened. Master Qin had been taken away, and now he was in a state of uncontactable. Was it not serious? The building is about to collapse. Qin Sheng sighed. Xue Qingyin frowned and said, "Even if Master Qin was taken away, it should not be so serious. Maybe you think too much. Maybe it is a false alarm?" "We also hope so. But is it possible?" From the feedback from all sides, this time it is really a volcanic eruption. Qin Sheng said truthfully. Xue Qingyin asked in a deep voice, "So, after Master Qin was taken away, have you seen him so far?" "No, I can't get any news at all. Everyone is trying to avoid it. No one is willing to help the Qin family. Can you imagine how much resistance there is behind it?" Qin Sheng said helplessly. He did not lament that a friend in need would show his true feelings or that the tea would cool after the person left, because this was not an ordinary thing. Whoever was involved might be affected. No matter how good the relationship was, no one was willing to risk their lives to help the Qin family. More people like Master Lu and the others would stab the Qin family in the back. Xue Qingyin's expression gradually became serious, and she said, "Then what are you going to do?" "Wait," Qin Sheng replied very simply. Xue Qingyin was very surprised and said, "Just wait? No action at all? Aren't you afraid that the situation will become more and more serious, and there will be no room for maneuver?" When everyone heard the Qin family's choice, they would be shocked. According to most situations and cases, at this time, they should spend all their money, try to get information through their connections, and then use their influence to solve the problem. No matter what price they had to pay, it would be fine as long as they got through safely. However, this time the Qin family could not do it. Qin Sheng sighed and said, "This is the Zhu family suggestion. Sister, do you have any better ideas?" Xue Qingyin had been speculating whether the Zhu family would help the Qin family. Although from the current information, it seemed that the Zhu family did not intend to get involved, and they did not take any direct action. Xue Qingyin also thought that it was not the right time yet, and the Zhu family was not ready to take action. However, there was also a possibility that the Zhu family would not interfere with the Qin family's affairs, because the Zhu family's future was more important than anything else. Many people could see clearly that the Zhu family was planning that after Zhu Weiguo retired, Zhu Changshan could smoothly take over. This was the change of power in the Zhu family, to ensure that the younger generation of the Zhu family could smoothly enter the core circle in the next 10 or 20 years. However, when Qin Sheng said that this was the Zhu family suggestion, Xue Qingyin had to think more. It seemed that the Zhu family did not give up on the Qin family, and it was very likely that they would take action later. The Zhu family suggestion? I don't understand. Xue Qingyin was very confused. This was a little unexpected for her. She did not know what the Zhu family was thinking, at least she could not understand it. Not to mention Xue Qingyin, even Qin Sheng was a little confused, not to mention Zhao Anji and the others. However, Qin Sheng believed that his uncle and uncle could see further, so he said, "Maybe we will understand it if we wait." Since Qin Sheng did not drink, Xue Qingyin did not stay in Shangshan Ruoshui for too long. After saying goodbye, they left Shangshan Ruoshui, but they did not rush to leave. Instead, they walked side by side under the parasol tree outside, and the others followed them. "So you took the time to go back to Shanghai?" Xue Qingyin said casually. Qin Sheng nodded and replied, "Sort of. I just solved all the problems left in Shanghai. Otherwise, when Beijing is really busy, I am afraid that there will be no such leisure time. At that time, even if I come back, I am afraid that I will come and go in a hurry. Xue Qingyan encouraged Qin Sheng. No matter what, I believe everything will get better. Maybe things will not be so bad. Qin Sheng was finally willing to say something. He said, maybe for the Qin family or the Chang and group, it is the best choice to break down and then build up. This is not only the problem of the Qin family and the Chang and group, but also the problem that these barbaric interest groups have to face in the 30 years of reform and opening up. So the Qin family and the Chang and group may not be the end, but just the beginning. Xue Qingyan was shocked when she heard this. She did not expect Qin Sheng to see so far and seemed to be very open-minded. At least she would not be like this. Qin Sheng did not speak anymore. During this time, he always thought of what the old professor said at the Qinghua Lake. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that many problems gradually became clear. The old professor said that because of the general trend, no one could be a mantis trying to stop a chariot, and advancing and retreating with the country was the wisest choice. Everything was finally going to change. There was no news from Beijing, so Qin Sheng continued to wait in Shanghai. 2 days passed unconsciously. After Xia Ding came back from Hangzhou, he directly ran to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng and Lin Su invited him and his girlfriend to dinner that night. On the way back, Xia Ding mentioned the class reunion that he mentioned last time and asked Qin Sheng if he was interested. Qin Sheng happened to be free, so he casually agreed. Chapter 860. The so-called reunion, the so-called class reunion, was not a class reunion. Back then, Qin Sheng was not very close to his classmates. In the beginning, they still had some contact after graduation. However, after he disappeared for 2 years, they no longer had any contact with each other. This reunion was a reunion of classmates of the same grade back then. At that time, several influential classmates of the same grade formed it. The members were all outstanding or influential classmates of the same grade. Of course, there was no lack of students with considerable resources, such as the children of officials or rich families. Otherwise, how could a slacker like Xia Ding join? However, wasn't the same in any school's reunion? No wonder everyone said that only those who were doing well could have a reunion, and those who were not doing well were just classmates. After all, in such a big environment in the country, the concept of classmates carried a lot of weight. In the future, no matter what you did, being a classmate or a classmate from the same school or the same hometown would bring you some help. It was the same for this reunion, which was inevitably tacky. Nowadays, most of the people in it were doing well. The new students had to go through the so-called organization's examination. They had certain standards and could only join after passing the examination. It had to be said that these people had a certain amount of resources. Qin Sheng was not a stranger to the reunion. For example, when he attended the Tsinghua University seminar last time, not to mention that there was a reunion in his class, everyone seemed to be quite close on normal days. It was just that Qin Sheng was not very active. Even so, he could not stop the enthusiasm of his classmates. Many people took the initiative to contact him or invited him to play together, and so on. During the graduation ceremony, Qin Sheng's image was too high profile. Only then did everyone realize that the most low-key character was actually the most hidden big boss. Not only that, later, there were professors or classmates who recommended Qin Sheng to join various famous alumni associations or reunion in Tsinghua University. However, Qin Sheng politely rejected them. He was not willing to contact these unfamiliar strangers. With his current identity, wouldn't he have to deal with all kinds of trivial matters? Therefore, Qin Sheng had nothing to do. Otherwise, he would not attend this kind of reunion. With his current strength, he did not need to attend the so-called reunion at all. The main reason was that Xia Ding also said that there would be a few classmates who were good friends with him in the past. Qin Sheng was a little interested. After all, his university memories were still very good. The process of the reunion was actually very simple. There were not too many complicated procedures. It was just to gather at Fudan University at noon. At that time, there would be a related ceremony. It was said that some leaders and teachers of Fudan University would also attend. In the afternoon, it would be a simple tea party to chat and chat. Everyone could also take the time to visit their teachers in the past, and so on. In the evening, it would be a more lively dinner party. They would drink and chat to get closer to each other. After dinner, they would be free to do whatever they wanted. Some classmates who did not have enough fun or regretted not meeting each other earlier could continue to leave. Of course, there was another situation, which depended on each person's ability. It would depend on each person's ability. Otherwise, everyone would say that a reunion was a couple. This time, Qin Sheng was still relatively low-key. He did not bring too many people with him, only Chang Baji. Then, he gave the others a day off to let them rest. Otherwise, with such a big scene, which of the classmates were all extremely smart, there would be a lot of trouble when the time came. Therefore, Chang Baji was his and Xia Ding's driver today. Wherever they went, Chang Baji naturally followed. Xia Ding, who was never short of money and loved to squander, recently bought a car again. He said that it was a gift for his girlfriend, Qin Xin. But why did he buy a new Lamborghini SUV? It was no wonder that after he bought the car, he was severely scolded by his parents. Why did he say that he bought a car for himself? Why did he say that it was a gift for Qin Xin? I don't believe that Qin Xin would like this kind of car. In the end, Xia Ding pestered them endlessly, and Qin Xin helped him to get through this hurdle. Actually, Xia Ding naturally did not lack this bit of money. It was just that he did not want to spend it himself, if he could. He had even done this business with his parents. It was not an ordinary kind of treacherous person. When they arrived at Fudan University, it seemed that it was still a little early. They were not in a hurry to go to the registration classroom. Qin Sheng had not returned to Fudan University since graduation. The few times he had gone there, he only passed by and did not go in. Hence, Qin Sheng and Xia Ding wanted to take a good look around again. They wanted to go to those familiar places and experience their past memories. It was a good thing to do. It was a pity that it was the summer vacation now. There was still half a month before the new school started. Otherwise, if they were in the mood, they could squat under the teaching building of the School of Foreign Languages and look at the beautiful little girls. Although it was the summer vacation now, there were still quite a number of students on campus. It was just that there were not as many as usual. Many students would stay in Shanghai during the summer vacation to work or do internships. After all, there were more opportunities in Shanghai. For those students in remote and poor areas or from families, the summer vacation could allow them to earn some tuition fees or living expenses for the next semester. Not everyone's family was like Xia Ding and Qin Sheng's. The two of them talked and laughed as they walked through many places. The familiar dormitory building, the familiar teaching building and classroom, the familiar canteen and restaurant, the familiar playground, the familiar road, and everything was familiar. However, there were no familiar people, only familiar memories. In the end, Qin Sheng found that there was a familiar figure in all these familiar places. That was Su Qin. Su Qin was destined to be a memory that he could not forget and escape from. She would always stay in the depths of his heart. Hence, Qin Sheng felt a little sad at this moment, especially when he thought of what Hao Lei had said a few days ago. Su Qin had been hesitating whether to make that call or not. He had already made up his mind not to disturb Su Qin's life anymore. But was it the best choice for Su Qin to not disturb her? At that time, he also heard that Su Qin was ready to let go of him. But could she really let go of such an unforgettable person and thing just by saying it? Obviously not. Sometimes, Qin Sheng felt that he seemed to be a bit too cruel to Su Qin. Back then, she did not do anything wrong. Everything was his own choice. Moreover, Su Qin had looked for him for so long and even waited for him for so long. She really did not let him down. But in the end, he just missed Su Qin. At that time, maybe his male chauvinism was for Su Qin's good, because his life was destined to be wandering from place to place. He did not want Su Qin to suffer with him, so he could only be so cruel. But now, he did not need to think about these trivial things. Did he want to see Su Qin suffer? Did he really have the heart to do that? Su Qin was the first love who had accompanied him through his youth. From the 3 years of high school to the 4 years of college, Su Qin had accompanied him in all his campus life. It was Su Qin who gave him the love he wanted the most when he was in school. It was Su Qin who had accompanied him through every spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Could he really forget those beautiful and innocent times and those bits and pieces of the past? Qin Sheng felt some inexplicable heartache, but he already had Lin Su now. But this did not seem to be a reason, because he still had Qing. It seemed to be very unfair to Su Qin. Qin Sheng could not help but think of a possibility. If it was almost time, Xia Ding said that the students over there had already made a call. So Qin Sheng and Xia Ding went to the classroom used for reception. Before they arrived at the door of the classroom, they already saw a lot of people at the door. It looked a little lively. There were a lot of luxury cars parked on the roadside under the teaching building. They must be the cars of the students who participated in this class reunion. After all, many people in this class reunion were of high social status. According to Xia Ding, there were more than 100 members in this class reunion, all of whom were relatively good at their level. This time, there were estimated to be about 40 to 50 people who could come. It could be said that everyone gave them face. The rest were either abroad or in other places where they could not come because they were too busy with work. So everyone was very interested. Xia Ding said that everyone had a small gathering before. This time, they had graduated for 5 years, so there was a relatively large gathering. Qin Sheng could not help but feel a little emotional. Unknowingly, it had been 5 years since they graduated. With so many classmates, not everyone knew each other. Maybe they had at most seen each other in the past. Now that it had been 5 years since they graduated, they had almost forgotten each other. But with this class reunion, they would be familiar with each other again in the future. Xia Ding and Qin Sheng had arrived at the door of the lecture hall. At the door, there were students and staff who were in charge of reception and registration. The staff were part-time students of Fudan University. In fact, with the strength of this class reunion, it could be held in any 5-star hotel in Shanghai. But they felt that the taste would be different. Maybe many students would reject it. So they directly held it on the campus of Fudan University, taking the nostalgic route. In fact, Qin Sheng felt that the basic purpose was basically the same. It was just that if it was held in Fudan University, it would be more pleasing, because many students might really want to go back to the campus to have a look. There were students in front of them, so Qin Sheng and Xia Ding were not in a hurry. Xia Ding had always been popular, and he often had activities in Shanghai, so he knew many students. Just now, several people had already greeted him, including beautiful students. Poor Qin Sheng did not have any sense of existence. At most, they just smiled at him. "Boss, did you see that? Just now. That is the campus bell of the School of Foreign Languages. She was quite interested in me in the past. Unfortunately, I was pursuing someone from the School of Management, so I missed a fate." Xia Ding stared at a female student who had already entered and sighed with emotion. Qin Sheng said impatiently, "Boy, you also harmed a lot of our classmates in Fudan University, as well as senior and junior sisters. Let me count for you. How many girlfriends have you had in the whole university? I think there are 8. That is 1 a semester. Are you not afraid of retribution? Ah, who doesn't have a young and frivolous heart?" Xia Ding sighed. Qin Sheng did not bother to pay attention to this guy. Xia Ding also stopped talking nonsense. Only then did the two of them walk over to sign in. Xia Ding found the name to sign in smoothly, but Qin Sheng did not join this student association, so naturally his name was not on it. Then the student in charge of signing in and the staff did not allow Qin Sheng to enter, which was a little embarrassing. Actually, Xia Ding did not think much about this, because he did not pay much attention to this student association at all. He felt that they were all classmates of the same level in Fudan University. How could there be so many rules in a broken student association? However, he was also too lazy to argue with the student in charge of signing in. He was going to call one of the people in charge of the student association, who was also a classmate he and Qin Sheng were familiar with back then. At this moment, a man's voice suddenly came from behind. "Yo, isn't this young Master Xia? Do you want to bring in just anyone?" Chapter 861. Wasn't it just a classmate gathering of the same level? It was not the core class gathering of the entire Fudan Alumni Association. Naturally, Xia Ding didn't take it too seriously. He only thought that it was a gathering between classmates and friends. It should be no problem to bring Qin Sheng along. Who knew that it was so strict here? It was like some high-level entrepreneur club, and so on. However, Xia Ding did not think much about it. This also showed that the students who organized the activity were more serious and responsible. Rules were rules. If anyone could participate, wouldn't it be a mess? Qin Sheng also thought so. He persuaded Xia Ding with a few words. Therefore, Xia Ding called his friend whom he was familiar with and asked him to come out and talk to him. Xia Ding couldn't hold back his anger anymore. He was really unlucky to meet this guy today. When they were in school, they didn't get along with each other and had conflicts. It had been 5 years since they graduated, but this guy was still the same. Xia Ding didn't know when this guy joined his class reunion. Qin Sheng and Xia Ding didn't get along well with each other at school. They had some conflicts. 5 years after graduation, this guy was still the same. Xia Ding didn't know when this guy joined his class reunion. He had never heard of it. But after all, it was a class gathering, and they were all old classmates. This was not the time when they were in school. Otherwise, Xia Ding would have hit him directly. They were all adults, and he could not be so impulsive. So he was not flustered and exasperated. After restraining his emotions, he looked up and down at this old acquaintance and replied, "Oh, it's you, hi. I was wondering who could spit out ivory from a dog's mouth. It turns out it's you. When did you sneak in a class gathering? It seemed that you're doing well." Qin Sheng had already turned around and quietly looked at this old classmate who had been beaten by him in the past. It seemed that he was doing well indeed. He was dressed very brightly, and all his clothes were from big brands. His hair was combed back, and his hairline almost reached the back of his head. The most important thing was that he brought a female companion. Her temperament and appearance were not bad. No wonder he was so arrogant. However, this beauty glanced at Qin Sheng and Xia Ding and lost interest. She lowered her head and continued to play with her mobile phone. She did not mean to greet them. It was unknown whether it was because she was a rich and arrogant beauty or because she felt that the relationship between them was not good. She paid more attention to Xia Ding. Maybe Xia Ding liked to show off his wealth, and Qin Sheng, who was low-key, was naturally ignored. Yuhai narrowed his eyes and said unhappily, "Xia Ding, it's been so many years, but you're still so arrogant. I really don't know how you survived until now. I heard that you're still living off your parents. That's all you've got. I don't know why you were allowed to join the class reunion. That's because my old man is more powerful than your old man. If you want to live off your old man, you have to have the ability to do so. I'm still wondering how you managed to sneak into the class reunion. Don't tell me you've become a live-in son-in-law." Xia Ding had always been unforgiving with his words. He purposely glanced at the cold and arrogant beauty beside him and teased. He didn't know why this woman fell for Yuhai. The beauty also heard Xia Ding's words. She subconsciously raised her head and glared at Xia Ding. "What did you say?" Yuhai was also a little annoyed. No man would let others bully his woman. Xia Ding's words were already a naked provocation. However, Yuhai didn't dare to make a scene in this class reunion. He also didn't dare to stand up for his girlfriend. He could only shout, "What did you say?" Xia Ding was about to reply when Qin Sheng pulled him back. This was because this place had become the focus of everyone. Many students who came to participate in the class reunion were standing and watching. Of course, Qin Sheng didn't want to become a joke. He could only pull Xia Ding back. Then, he looked at Yuhai and said, "Yuhai, long time no see." Yuhai had long recognized Qin Sheng. However, because of the grudges in the past, he didn't want to take the initiative to greet Qin Sheng. That resentment was still suppressed in his heart. He sneered and said, "Oh, I was wondering who Xia Ding brought here. So it's you, Qin Sheng. How did you end up like this? You even want to join the class reunion. Do you need me to inform President Chao?" "There's no need for that. Who asked me to not be qualified?" Qin Sheng said lightly. There was no need for him to fight with someone like Yuhai. If he did that, it would seem that he was relatively stingy. It was just a class reunion. It didn't matter if he didn't attend. He was originally here to join in the fun. Yuhai didn't expect Qin Sheng to advance by taking a step back. He knew that Qin Sheng had been in the limelight many times in the past. He was considered an influential figure in their class. Therefore, Yuhai was very jealous of Qin Sheng. At this time, the old classmate that Xia Ding had called came out. Seeing that there were many people gathered here, he quickly ran over and asked, "What's wrong? What's going on?" Xia Ding saw the old acquaintance and scolded angrily. "I say, old son, why did you come out so late? If you didn't come out soon, I will be disgusted to death by some flies. A stupid class reunion with so many rules. Don't call me in the future." The simple and honest man called Old Son seemed to be a person who knew his place. When he heard Xia Ding's words, he also saw Yuhai, who was not far away from him. It seemed that he thought of what had happened in the past and understood what was going on. He just nodded and smiled at Yuhai. Then he asked Xia Ding, "You said that Qin Sheng is also here. Where is he?" Xia Ding pointed at Qin Sheng, who was behind Old Son, and said, "Isn't he here? Are you blind?" Old Son and Qin Sheng's dormitory were originally close, so he was very familiar with Qin Sheng. He also held a key position in the student union and often abused his power for personal gain. Therefore, he had been in contact with Xia Ding all these years. Back then, when Xia Ding joined this class reunion, he was also invited by Old Sunday. It was just that Qin Sheng disappeared for a long time, so they didn't contact each other anymore. However, their relationship in the past was still there. After seeing Xia Ding, Old Son had mixed feelings. He directly put his arm around Qin Sheng's shoulder and said with a sigh, "Let's not talk about anything else. Let's go in first." With Old Son, the core figure of the class reunion, Qin Sheng naturally entered smoothly. When he entered this big classroom, he found that there were already many classmates here. Some of them had met in the past, but they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Some of them just didn't come out, and some of them only had a vague impression of him. However, most of them were relatively unfamiliar to him. After all, there were so many students at the same level as him, and he could recognize all of them. However, Qin Sheng and Xia Ding were both influential figures in the past. Although they didn't know others, it didn't mean that others didn't know them. Therefore, after they entered the classroom, many classmates began to talk about them. It seemed that they didn't expect to see them here. After Old Son led Qin Sheng and Xia Ding into the classroom, Yuhai still stayed in the same place. His eyes were filled with uncertainty, and no one knew what he was thinking. At this time, his girlfriend sneered at him and said, "Why are you so useless? Are you still the same you in the past? What can I do with you? You really disappoint me." Yuhai didn't say anything. At this time, a man walked over from behind, patted Yuhai's shoulder lightly, and said, "Yuhai, what's wrong? Are you still angry?" A man's dignity is not earned in this way. After Yuhai turned around and saw that it was that man, he quickly smiled apologetically and said, "Chairman Chao, you are here." The man, who was called Chairman Chao by Yuhai, had witnessed the whole process just now. He was already used to it. Who had not offended a few people when they were students? Who had not been bullied or bullied? Some classmates would more or less have some conflicts, let alone these privileged people. Therefore, it was normal for there to be conflicts between classmates. It was just that most of them didn't have any interactions after graduation, and these conflicts would completely disappear and become memories. As for the old classmates who had come together because of this class reunion, some of them had taken the initiative to reconcile, some of them had hidden from each other, and some of them had never contacted each other. As for those who couldn't communicate with each other, they didn't bother to deal with them. Chairman Chao could totally persuade Yuhai and Qin Sheng to reconcile, but it seemed that he didn't mean to do so. Why? Because he didn't have a good impression of Qin Sheng back then. Who asked him to pursue Su Qin back then? But Su Qin was Qin Sheng's girlfriend. In the end, he could only regret it for the rest of his life. Therefore, he had a lot of opinions about Qin Sheng. Later, Qin Sheng and Su Qin broke up. Qin Sheng went missing while Su Qin stayed in Shanghai. Qin Sheng, who also stayed in Shanghai, still pursued Su Qin relentlessly. Unfortunately, Su Qin rejected him every time he confessed to her. It was not until he heard from other classmates that Su Qin had been waiting for Qin Sheng that he gave up completely. What he didn't understand was what was so good about Qin Sheng that Su Qin was so infatuated with him. Regardless of family background or ability, he felt that Qin Sheng was not worth mentioning at all. Moreover, he was the vice president of the Student Union of Fudan University. With such a background, everyone knew that he had a bright future. However, Su Qin just didn't like him. Until now, he still couldn't understand why. The more he couldn't understand this matter, the more he hated Qin Sheng. Compared with Yu Hai, who was so straightforward, he knew how to hide it. Moreover, he was the vice president of the student union. He didn't want this matter to affect his future. Later, he also inquired about the news about Su Qin. He heard that Su Qin had left Shanghai and returned to Xi'an. This made him a little emotional. However, as time went by and he got busy with his work, he didn't think about these things anymore. However, he didn't expect that he would meet his former rival in love, Qin Sheng, again at this class reunion today. It was really a narrow road for enemies. Now, when he faced Qin Sheng again, he was naturally full of confidence. He was a junior who was placed high hopes on by his family. Now he was already at the deputy division level. He was less than 30 years old. Everyone could imagine how far he could go in the future. Therefore, most of the people in the class reunion fawned on him. As for Qin Sheng, he didn't seem to be doing well. He was still so ordinary. Such a rival in love did not deserve to be his opponent at all. Therefore, for the sake of the evil thoughts in his heart, he had already thought about how to humiliate Qin Sheng. Who asked Qin Sheng to have Su Qin while he didn't have such a chance? Therefore, this President Chao led Yu Hai into the lecture hall, talking and laughing. Naturally, he sat in the front seat, while Yu Hai took his girlfriend to the back. This scene was coincidentally seen by Xia Ding. After all, Xia Ding always stared at the door to see if there were any beauties appearing. Therefore, when he saw President Chao, Xia Ding pointed at Qin Sheng and said, "Boss, is that Chao Kefin in front? The vice president of the student union who used to chase after Su Qin? I didn't expect him to be here today." Qin Sheng naturally recognized Chao Kefin. He said casually and didn't think much about it. Xia Ding deliberately said, half-jokingly, "I heard that this vice president is doing well now. Boss, you have to be careful." Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. It had been 4 or 5 years since the stories of these old friends. He had long forgotten about them. However, if they took the initiative to provoke him, they could only blame their bad luck. Chapter 862. How could it be simple? Of course, Xia Ding was joking. With Qin Sheng's current identity, none of these so-called old classmates could be his match. If anyone dared to provoke him, they would be courting death. No matter how good they were, where could they go? No matter if they were in politics, business, or self-made businesses, they were nothing in front of Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was not so stingy. It had been 4 or 5 years since he graduated. What happened in the past was already in the past. Sometimes when he thought about it, he felt that it was quite childish. But everyone was like that when they were young. People always had to experience a lot of things before they could gradually grow up. If every young man was so mature, the world would be too boring. Maybe it was because they had just entered the lecture hall. Some students were not used to the atmosphere here. Everyone seemed to be a little restrained and only talked to their regular or familiar friends. Xia Ding was a social butterfly in the student union. He often met up with his old classmates in Shanghai, so he knew a lot of students. At this moment, he was very busy. He was good at this kind of occasion, so he was like a fish in water. Qin Sheng sat there alone and chatted with Lao Sun for a while. Lao Sun asked him what he had been doing in the past few years and why there was no news about him at all. Qin Sheng just casually explained it to him. Anyway, these stories were just hearsay to others. How many people could understand the joys and sorrows of life in the story? So it didn't matter if it was true or not. But after chatting with him, Qin Sheng also knew that old Sun was doing quite well nowadays. After he graduated, he went to work in the municipal committee of the Communist Youth League. Under the recommendation of his tutor, he was appreciated by a noble person. Now he was already a small cadre. No wonder he had a lot of prestige in the class reunion and became one of the organizers of this reunion. As one of the organizers of this class reunion, old Sun naturally had a lot of things to do. After chatting with Qin Sheng for a while, he left. Qin Sheng sat there alone and looked at the students coming and going. Some of the students who took the initiative to greet him, Qin Sheng would not reject them. He would smile and greet them politely. After all, they had crossed paths in the past. Although 5 years had passed since graduation, the memories and feelings of the past were still there. However, Qin Sheng still felt a little emotional. Although the people today had not changed much from what they had been in the past, many things had actually changed. For example, they were no longer arrogant and fearless students in the past. They had become ordinary people who had to lower their heads in the face of reality and life. In the past, they would get close to whoever they liked. Now, they would get close to whoever was doing well. This was the change. Although he felt emotional and disappointed, Qin Sheng could understand it. There were always a lot of helplessness in life. Who didn't want to live a pure and free life? But how many people could really live like that? In the end, it still became a reality. Therefore, sitting here at this moment, everything in the lecture hall could be seen clearly. For example, whoever was doing well would naturally have more classmates around him. Whoever was doing well would be the center of the circle. It was similar to the game rules in the outside world. Even if 2 students were chatting alone, it could be seen who was doing better than the other. There were differences in tone, manner, and so on. Therefore, Qin Sheng, an old classmate who had disappeared for several years, became invisible. Except for the classmates who were familiar with him or knew him in the past, no one paid attention to him anymore. Even the classmates who were familiar with him instantly lost interest in chatting with him after hearing that he was now unemployed. The reality was so cruel that people felt a little helpless. Probably no one would have thought that the invisible Qin Sheng was the one who was doing the best here. Originally, Xiaoding wanted to introduce Qin Sheng to everyone. However, Qin Sheng was not interested and asked him not to care about him. Naturally, Xiaoding would not stand on ceremony with Qin Sheng. Not long after he left Qin Sheng behind, he became acquainted with various people. Qin Sheng sat for a while and just sent away his former friends who lived in the same dormitory. A beautiful woman who used to be pure and cute, but was now full of charm, walked over and sat next to Qin Sheng naturally. She opened her mouth and said softly, "Do you still remember me?" After smelling the faint Chanel perfume, Qin Sheng subconsciously looked to the side. After his eyes stayed for a few seconds, he recognized this beautiful young woman and said in a low voice, "I didn't expect you to come too. TSK, 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 you still remember me. I didn't chase you for so long in vain." The beautiful woman who used to be a girl and was now a young woman reached out her hand naturally and said, "Long time no see, Qin Sheng." The beautiful woman with the strong smell of a young woman was called Liang Xuan. She used to be a big beauty in the school of foreign languages. Back then, she took the initiative to chase Qin Sheng and persisted for 2 years. She only gave up when she was sure that there was no chance. It was said that she met a son of an official who was chasing her. After that, there was no news of Qin Sheng. Liang Xuan's conditions were not bad. Not to mention her natural appearance. She dared to be so confident in front of Su Qin. If she did not have some strength, she would be a laughing stock. Secondly, her family conditions were not bad. It was said that she was born in a diplomatic family. Her grandfather, maternal grandfather, and parents were all diplomats. This made her naturally arrogant and contemptuous of most of her pursuers. Why did she like Qin Sheng? There was naturally a story behind it. Unfortunately, they were not fated to be together and missed each other. Ever since Liang Xuan had a boyfriend, she and Qin Sheng did not have much contact. This time, she was instigated to come to the class reunion. It was because she happened to be on a business trip in Shanghai these few days. Plus, in this society, it was not a bad thing to hang out with classmates. Moreover, she was born in a diplomatic family, so she did not reject this kind of occasion. However, Liang Xuan did not expect to see Qin Sheng here. She confirmed it was Qin Sheng after confirming again and again. Compared to Qin Sheng in the past, the current Qin Sheng seemed to be more calm, like a middle-aged uncle who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Liang Xuan then walked over and sat next to Qin Sheng. She did not greet him in a conventional way. She directly asked Qin Sheng if he knew her. Qin Sheng's answer was also very interesting. Liang Shuang used to be a famous big beauty when she was in the outer courtyard of Fudan University. She was especially popular. Now that she had entered the society, it was still the same. Therefore, when Liang Shuang sat next to Qin Sheng, some classmates had already begun to point at her. After all, Liang Shuang was so famous. Whether it was her family background or the power of her current in-laws, they were not simple at all. How could Qin Sheng refuse a beauty who took the initiative to reach out her hand? However, after shaking hands, Liang Shuang did not seem to have any intention of letting go. She chuckled and said, "Although we haven't seen each other for 5 or 6 years, why do I find that you as a man have become more attractive? It seems that I shouldn't have given up on you back then." Qin Sheng felt a little helpless. Liang Shuang back then was more straightforward. Now, Liang Shuang was even more so. She was a woman who really knew how to use her own advantages to maximize her benefits. She was unworldly, but shrewd. She was a very smart woman. Therefore, Qin Sheng felt that she was not suitable for him. When she saw Qin Sheng again, Liang Shuang did not bear a grudge because she had been rejected by Qin Sheng back then. She also did not have the mentality of, "You were indifferent to me in the past, but now I am unworthy of you." She was even more unwilling to guess what Qin Sheng's current identity was and how he was doing. These were all the ways she treated other classmates. When facing Qin Sheng, she only had one thing. That was, Qin Sheng was the boy she had liked back then. At least, after observing for a long time, she found that Qin Sheng was still the same Qin Sheng back then. Although he had experienced the vicissitudes of life and was calm, what had not changed was still his character, unlike most of the other so-called classmates present, who had changed so much that they might not even be able to recognize themselves. "I heard that you are also quite happy now, so you made the right choice back then." Qin Sheng had to reply politely. Liang Shuang's eyes were a little sad as she said, "Only I know whether I am happy or not. I heard that you and Su Qin broke up later, so I quite regret giving up on you back then. Maybe it is you who is by my side now, isn't it?" "Liang Shuang, we're not the same kind of people." Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Liang Shuang was a little confused. "Why not? Am I really not as good as Su Qin?" "It has nothing to do with these things," Qin Sheng said in a low voice. Liang Shuang did not want to talk about these things. She also heard about Qin Sheng and Su Qin breaking up later. She did not expect that the two people who used to love each other so deeply actually broke up. This made Liang Shuang very shocked. After all, no matter if it was Su Qin or Qin Sheng, they had pursued each other a lot. However, they had gone through 4 years of college and never had any emotional conflicts. Why did they break up just after college? This made a lot of people puzzled. "You really broke up with Su Qin?" Liang Shuang changed the topic. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said yes. Liang Shuang seemed to be a little doubtful and continued to ask, "No more contact? We saw each other before, but now we have no contact." Qin Sheng answered truthfully. Liang Shuang replied very disappointedly, "That is really a bit of a pity." Qin Sheng did not say anything more. He knew that there would definitely be a lot of students asking about this at the class reunion. After all, he and Su Qin were a celestial couple in many people's eyes at that time. However, these things that happened later, no one had expected it. Liang Shuang no longer asked about love affairs. She asked again, "Let's talk about you. I haven't heard from you for 5 or 6 years. I don't know what you've been doing all these years. I also don't know where you are working now. Why didn't I know that you were coming to attend the class reunion?" Liang Shuang's series of questions made Qin Sheng a little bit speechless. Fortunately, Qin Sheng had a good impression of Liang Shuang. Although there were these stories between them in the past, their relationship was still good, and there was no conflict. So Qin Sheng replied, "I wandered from place to place in order to make a living, unlike you high-ranking officials' children or rich second-generation children. Nowadays, most of the time, I am in Beijing or Shanghai. If there is time, we can also get together. As for this class reunion, it is to accompany Xia Ding to kill time, and at the same time to meet old friends like you." "Oh, no wonder." I was wondering why you were not on the list, Liang Shuang said thoughtfully. In the future, if you're often in Shanghai, we can get together. I often come to Shanghai for business. If there's a chance, you can also go to Nanjing. Even if we can't be lovers, it is not bad to be friends. Whatever you say, Qin Sheng said, half-jokingly. Maybe it was because she was very happy to see Qin Sheng again, or maybe it was because the conversation atmosphere was good. Liang Shuang seemed to be in a good mood. She chatted with Qin Sheng for a long time before leaving. The others were quite envious of Qin Sheng. After all, there were not many female students who came to attend this class reunion, not to mention someone as outstanding as Liang Shuang. Whoever had such a relationship with her would definitely be amazing in the future. At this time, almost all the students had arrived. The student who hosted the activity asked everyone to sit down. Liang Shuang had already left Qin Sheng's place and sat together with a few beauties, talking and laughing. At this time, Xiaoding also came back. He had already seen Liang Shuang coming over, so he secretly laughed and said, "Boss, are you going to continue the previous relationship? A dog's mouth can't spit out ivory." Qin Sheng directly scolded. Xiaoding clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "You don't say. This Liang Shuang is even more charming than when she was in university. If it were not for her in-laws being so powerful, I would also want to hook up with her." "Oh, how powerful?" Qin Sheng asked curiously. Xiaoding laughed and said, "Of course not as powerful as you, boss. But I heard that her in-laws are quite powerful in Sunan. I heard all this from Lao Si. He has seen Liang Shuang several times in Nanjing. Liang Shuang also asked about you, but Lao Si did not pay much attention to her." Qin Sheng did not expect there to be such a story. No wonder Liang Shuang was qualified to attend the class reunion, and no wonder others dared not have too many ideas about Liang Shuang. The class reunion finally began. It was a very normal procedure. There were not too many complicated things. They welcomed the school leaders and teacher representatives who came to attend. Then it was the school leaders and the person in charge of the class reunion who gave a speech. The person who gave a speech on the school side was a vice president, which made Qin Sheng a little surprised. He did not expect Fudan to pay so much attention to this. However, the person who gave a speech on the class reunion side was a student Qin Sheng did not know. Qin Sheng thought it was Chao Kefan. After all, he was the third in command of the student union back then. After Xia Ding explained, Qin Sheng understood why. It turned out that there were actually a few big shots in this class reunion. For example, this student who gave a speech, his family was worth tens of billions. How could he be simple? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.